It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's here. Richard Campbell's here. Actually, Paul's in Mexico City. Richard Campbell's in London. Pay no attention to that. They're here for Windows Weekly. Microsoft's earnings are coming out. We'll have an early peek at what Microsoft said. We'll also take a look at the big DeepSeek reveal. Is this good for Microsoft? Maybe not. Or maybe it is. Plus, did you know that Microsoft is now the biggest game publisher in the world? All that and more coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 917, recorded Wednesday, January 29th, 2025. There is no 10. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show we cover the latest news from Microsoft. And we have two contestants on today's show.
Pick me.
Bachelor number one, Mr. Paul Thurrott.
Raspberry. Am I right?
From Thurrott.com. He is in Mexico City, MXC, MCX? CDMX, Cuidad.
Which, as I say, that sounds like a bike race thing. Or something.
It does, doesn't it?
It's not.
Yeah, it sounds like you're in the mud.
Isn't that new designer drug?
Look at that. Yes. That's Richard Campbell, and he's in London.
In London.
What is the show you're there for, Richard?
It's NDC London, which I've done for many years. And
NDC stands for?
The Norwegian Developers Conference, which is why it's in London.
Obviously. Leo,
of course.
How embarrassing for you.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Oh, boy.
I'm sure there's a reason the Norwegian Developers Conference is in London.
Well, they know their main show is in Oslo, but they've expanded over the years. So now they just call it NDC, and they have a London show.
Nice.
So we're in the convention center. So I'm literally in view of Westminster Abbey and Big Ben.
Oh, how fun!
It's beautiful.
You're down there by the Elizabeth Tower.
I mean, I'd flip the camera, but it's so dark here, you just see nothing.
Just open the window so when Big Ben tolls the chimes, the choles, we'll know.
No, yeah, that's you hear it during the day, but you don't hear it at night.
Oh, that's no good. They turn it down at night. They do. Just ring it gently, pianissimo.
It's so loud.
Good. Well, we're good to see you both in your world travels. I'm back here in California, hoping that we don't slide into the ocean and
today.
Sorry,
or burn up, one or the other.
Or burn up. Well, that's kind of there's a sequence, you burn up, then you slide into the ocean.
There you go.
It's a perfect storm, so to speak.
Yeah. You burn, then you drown.
Yeah. So, what do you want to start with? Windows 11, I think. Yes?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. What's going on?
It's not like anything else happened this week.
Why not? Yeah.
Well, because January apparently has 7 weeks in it. Yesterday was not Patch Tuesday, the Week D preview update day, which, come to think of it, we need a better name for, but the Tuesday of Week D, I guess. Whatever. Anyway, which means we're previewing the Patch Tuesday updates we're going to see next month, right, on Patch Tuesday in February. That's how the months work. Okay, so wait
a minute. This is interesting. I didn't know they did this. They do a preview of the patches to the insider folk?
No, this is they don't always do it in this order, but the way this is supposed to work is, and it did work this time, is the week before these builds will go to the release preview channel. So if you're an insider program, you test them. Presumably you've tested these features in other channels. I say presumably because I don't see any of these on my dev channel build box, but you know what? Let's not worry about that right now.
It's for enterprises so that the IT department can say, well, is this a breaking patch, right?
I mean, in a non-cynical way, I think it's also for consumers because that way they'll get this in front of some eyeballs.
Right. And who gets this?
So you go into Windows Update and there's a checkbox you can click that says, give me first look at whatever updates, whatever it says.
Right. I didn't realize Patch Tuesday patches went in there.
Previews of Patch Tuesday patches. So if you just went to Windows Update today and hadn't checked that box, you'll be presented with this update so you could get it. if you want to right now.
I apologize. I suppose everybody knew this, and it's just I'm the first one to hear you say that.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
it's not a big deal. But
Okay.
I wrote as part of when I came here to Mexico, I have some computers here. I have an Apple TV and speakers, and I have all stuff. And in going through the rigmarole of updating all that, it occurred to me that I have too many things I need to update all the time. It's crazy. And the kind of theme of
You're
this
probably
is
running your own update server at this point, Paul.
yeah. If you could right now open up Windows Update in Windows, you will have an update. You will. There'll be like a security definition. Like absolutely, you will have one. You could open your Android phone and go into right click play my item my apps, whatever it is. You will have app updates. Same thing on iOS. I went into my Apple TV, sat down, turned it on. General software updates, and it said we checked for updates 2 days ago. And I thought there's no update here. Check for updates. Oh, there's an update. Yeah, because there's always an update.
There's always an update.
There's always an update.
This is
So
Paul. We should call this Thurrott's law. There's always an update.
there's always an update. Yeah, don't. And if you thought your career was something else, it isn't. It's updating all your devices.
It's always an update.
Yeah,
It's true. It's really true. Every time you get something new in the mail, it has to be updated before you can use it.
Don't get me wrong. The system we have now in Windows specifically is much better than it was years ago. Remember, we used to have service packs. And then every once in a while, it'd be too long between service packs, so they would do like a cumulative roll up or whatever they called it, and it's better. They're cumulative updates now, but still, I have computers that have been sitting here since the beginning of November. They did get the November Patch Tuesday update, so by the time I came here, I'd have to look at the dates, but I want to say there were maybe 2 Patch Tuesdays. But if not, there was one. But then there was so all of these computers had firmware updates, driver updates, like this. It's all of them had several updates, and then all the app updates. It's crazy. Anyhow, this is one of those. So this one came out yesterday. Oh, it was actually 2. So there's one for Windows 11, one for Windows 10. The Windows 10 version is pretty basic. This is just basically the new Outlook app that everybody loves so much. Replacing the mail calendar and people apps, right? So that's happening. And then, I'll just wait for someone to say, but you promised us no updates because they did, but let's get
It's Thurrott's law. There's always
another update, even when they promise otherwise. Yeah. So the Windows 11 one, I would say in the scheme of Patch Tuesday, this is a preview, but next month's Patch Tuesday, which will be the first Patch Tuesday with new features of this year, not particularly major. There are improvements to taskbar previews, meaning when you mouse over it, it pops up that little preview box. If you're using an app that has a camera capability and can use Windows Studio Effects, you'll get an icon down in the system tray. The one in here, I just this morning, this was driving me insane because I reinstalled Windows.
I just started Windows. Ignore me.
Yeah. The mouse cursor disappears.
Let's see if there's an update.
Oh, there's an update.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll give you 3 ways to look for updates. All of which, well, not all of which, both of which have, or 3 of which have some overlap, and you will have updates in all 3 of them.
And because I'm on Parallels, I have Parallels updates first.
Yes.
You can't win, can you? It's just
Yep. So if you use Windows 11, there is one big weird update that, well, not big, but one weird problem that was introduced in 24H2, which is that the mouse cursor disappears.
Oh. And
it usually happens when it turns into that I-beam cursor for text insertion. And I run into this all the time. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I use PowerToys has a tool I think it's just called Find My Mouse, where you hit the control button twice.
Yeah. I use that.
Right?
Yeah.
I use it every day now because I'm apparently, it makes me feel like I'm blind.
Does it fix the disappearing cursor and brings it back?
No, it just shows you where the cursor is. But the preview update we got yesterday does have a fix for this bug, apparently. So we'll see. We'll see.
Apple does the same thing, only you shake your mouse and the cursor gets big.
Right. Actually, that's not a horrible idea either.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That might actually be a feature of Windows. Now that you say that.
I'm always losing my cursor, right? So so I shake it and see.
I'm going to look at that now. I wonder. I think that might be a. Let me see.
Does that happen in Windows?
Yeah, I think there's a little control
Windows
panel.
Security,
Yeah.
Microsoft Defender.
So
summary.
no, so they have a feature where you can turn on mouse tails. Hilarious.
No, I stopped using that in the 1990s.
If you press and hold in the control key, you can show the pointer as well. I'm actually
yeah, I've done that. That I use on Windows.
That takes a little while though. Well, no, that's okay. I see. Yeah, I like the Power Toy one better. But anyway, yeah, you got to find the mouse cursor. That's how we get stuff done. I don't know. Anyway, so I wouldn't call this a momentous month or anything for updates. Certainly not in the scope of some of the baloney we went through last year. But whatever.
Looks like Thurrott's law is not holding. I'm up to date.
It's holding. If you haven't looked, you definitely have updates. No, you do. You just do. Like you will.
I must, right?
You will.
I just must. Yeah.
So there are two other places you have to look, though, right? And both of them will also have updates, right?
The App Store too, right?
The App Store. Yep.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah.
Go to downloads.
There's always updates in the App Store. Yeah.
Down bottom left, downloads, or that wouldn't work actually.
Where downloads?
It's like, yep, right there, and then
get updates. Okay.
Yep. But here's my favorite one. You could get these both up to date, right? Everything's done. There's no more updates.
Yeah.
And then open a terminal window and do winget update. You will have updates. Oh,
you're right.
Updates.
There were updates available. You're right. Every time.
This is
so Wingate. Okay, I understand the store does apps from the store, and Windows Update does system apps. What does Winget do that's different? Is it additional apps?
Yeah, so Winget can update apps from the store and from its own web-based repository, meaning they essentially download it from the web.
Yeah.
But what the weird thing I've seen, I'm trying to document this, is you could check for updates in the store and you're all done, and then you check in Winget, and it still finds updates that are store-based apps. And it's like, come on, guys. Like it's kind of insidious, but that's whatever. If you have OCD or ADHD like I do.
That's the thing.
This is a nightmare.
What the advice should be, just ignore it and let it update itself, right?
That should be the update when someone insults me. But, the thing is, I find it hard to let those things go. So, yeah. I mean, ideally.
Now, we're OCD, all of us, and we do.
Yeah. That was
Lisa yells at me when I say there's an update because she says, why didn't you tell me? But she wants to know too. Everybody wants to know. My wife
used to drag the little dialogue down to the corner so it wasn't in her way anymore. Leave it there. So one day she's complaining about something was wrong with the computer. I said, "What's all these little windows in the corner?" And she's like, "I don't know. They were popping up about something." And
I love it.
I'm like, "Yeah, you have to update your computer."
It's good that we're married to normal people because
it's a little balance.
It's a little balance in our lives.
Yeah.
If you're wondering, Richard has fallen off the face of the earth because he is at a conference and everybody's using the internet. So I suspect because he didn't dial right back, he is off to the hotel. So he'll be back.
Yeah.
In one form or another, he'll be back.
Yeah. One of these things, I'm actually curious. I'm really curious what he thinks about this because he just did a show about this, but we will get there in a moment.
Yeah.
Since last week, there were 3 insider builds, one each to dev, beta, and now today Canary. Not a lot of updates, but some cool ones. And then, I think it's the dev build.
Oh crap! Now Edge wants me to know.
That's the other thing.
What made 2024 memorable?
Yeah. Speaking of updates, you got to go into Edge and update that too. That's another one. The apps that have their own little update thing. Yep. Yeah, Edge is coming up, and actually, you might want to you might want to update that right now, Leo, because we're going to talk about Edge in a second.
Okay.
So,
I do not need this PowerPoint presentation on why Edge is so great. I really don't.
Stay inspired, Leo.
I don't want it.
Yeah. So update that thing because and in fact, I have yet to see.
It says it's managed by my organization.
Sure, it is. Your organization is Microsoft.
It's me.
Yeah, that's always a great sign. Let me see if this one's up to date. Yeah, this one.
You know why it says that? I think is because I did that little hack to activate it, and I think that's one of the side effects of that is that now it thinks I'm in an organization, my own, of course, but
yep.
Because I set up basically in effect said I have a activation server and I'm activating you. Mm-hmm. That was the hack.
Yep. So that means some guy in India can probably change the settings in your computer at any time.
Great.
It's like, let's just send something down to the KLMs or whatever they're called. Okay. I don't know why we don't have a picture of this in my article, but the dev channel one is kind of fun because they're changing it so the battery icon in the tray actually has colors. So when it's charging in a good state, it'll be green. When it's in energy saving mode, it'll be yellow. And it makes you wonder why they didn't do this, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, literally.
Yeah. Color in the traffic
and
bar.
and plus you can at a glance kind of tell how your battery's doing a little bit easier than, if you're familiar with Windows 11, especially, and probably 10 too, I guess, that little battery icon, you could look at it and say, yeah, that looks about 33%. And you mouse over to go 77%. You're like, not even close. So actually having like a color thing is kind of nice.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's
It
cool.
just
And then
seems sensible.
the beta channel, they are experimenting with some new UIs for that Snap. It's actually not technically Snap. Well, it's a feature of Snap Layout. When you mouse over the maximize restore button in a window, it pops down like the possible layouts. They're looking at maybe doing this in different layout, basically. So that's kind of cool. And then what was the one today is Canary build. Oh, this is what we've already seen elsewhere. So there's so much information now in the default home screen in File Explorer. They've created tabs for the things that used to be just come down in like a single view. So you still have quick access at the top. Those are those folders that are over in the navigation pane. And then you have different, now they're tabs, but they used to be different sections. So things like recent items, favorites, shared, right? And so now those are actually on tabs. They've been improving the shared one in particular. I don't remember the exact details, honestly, but I think it works. I think it makes more sense if you're in a business. You'll see more information there. But if you do a lot of file or folder sharing in OneDrive, those things should show up in there as well. Okay, not that exciting, but
how we can make it more exciting? I don't know. It makes it more exciting.
I'm of a mixed mind on this, right? Because the last year and a half, I'm going to call it, has been incredibly chaotic. So
yeah, maybe
the fact that it's
a lot of stuff
calmed down for a little while, maybe it's not such a bad thing. I think it's going to churn up again, though, because there's a couple things that just happened that are kind of interesting and I think point to something else. So Raphael, who we all know, tweeted the other day, or whatever we're calling that now, that Microsoft is removing DevHome for Windows. So DevHome is always been a little curious to me, but it's still in preview. I want to say Microsoft announced this 2 years ago at Build. And the idea was that Microsoft wanted to make Windows like the best choice for developers. It never made sense to me that DevHome was installed by default on all Windows 11 installs. Actually, I'm seeing a message now. It says DevHome will be going away in May 2025, and a subset of its features will be moved to new places. So I got to be honest, that makes sense to me because a lot of this stuff is about you setting up an environment as a developer, and then you can clone it and put it on a different computer, that kind of thing. But I feel like developers already have workflows for that. Like, I don't know that they need this kind of hand-holding. But there are a couple of features in here that are actually really interesting and would be useful more broadly. And one of them is that ability to have an REFS drive, which is a much faster file access for your developer projects. And so it would help you set up this REFS developer drive. So I suspect that'll be one of the things I think that's going to come just to Windows. But they haven't said anything about this yet, other than the little warning banner that we see today. So yeah, May 2025, that's when Build's going to be. So that makes sense. I mentioned earlier, Richard did a episode recently. They did an episode on .NET Rocks about DevHome. So just an episode or two ago. So that kind of stinks. I don't know if they knew about
DevHome. Yeah, isn't that funny? Is there going to be something else to replace the functionality?
They're not saying, but yeah, given the timing, I think what they're going to do is just pull in or pull out, I guess, some of the features that were in DevHome and only in DevHome and just make them part of Windows proper. Because, like I do, I guess I'm a technical user. I mean, I set up a winget strip that does all my app installs. I think developers do that kind of thing.
Right.
So I don't know. I've never, when I sign into Visual Studio Code, I sign in with my GitHub account and it syncs all my settings, and then it just installs all the extensions I use, for example. Like developers have these things. Like, they don't really need another thing, and they certainly don't need it to be part of Windows, but I get it.
So it's basically a GUI to show you your Git status, your widget
it does that kind of stuff. There's some utilities. There's that, like I said, the REFS developer drive thing was kind of a big deal.
That's a different file system than NTFS.
Yeah. This was developed, I want to say, during Windows 8, back at a time when the Windows team was busy trying to erase the past. But it never
put out.
Yeah, they never replaced every single feature in NTFS, so they could never actually replace NTFS, but they did keep working on it. And it is better.
Resilient file system.
Yeah, it is better for certain things. And one of the things it does really well is quick file access. So it's good for developer projects. There's lots of small files.
Small files, yeah.
But the other thing that's in there that I'm kind of hoping will come just to WinGet is you could make what was called a YAML, meaning YAML, as opposed to XAML, XAML, XAML.
Yeah.
YAML, you could make a YAML configuration file for all of the stuff you wanted to install with WinGet. And when I saw that 2 years ago, I thought, okay, this is how WinGet's going to improve, because WinGet is great, but it doesn't do anything around automatic updating of all the apps you install. That's why you have to go check, as we talked about earlier. And it doesn't do anything around app configuration at all. So I was kind of hoping that was what that was going to turn into. So when they say that some of these features are going to just appear in Windows, I'm wondering if that isn't going to be one of them. I guess
REFS, I mean, that's a copy on write file system, right? It's a resilient file system, database. Seems it's a modern file system. In other words, it seems just like they should finish it.
I mean, I'm with you.
Is that crazy? Am I crazy talk?
No,
this is where Microsoft really suffers by this being slavish to legacy.
Yeah,
as you can't. For instance, one of the big things that REFS doesn't do is Win32 API support or complete support.
Yeah, so it has to do everything the other one does first.
Right.
Then you can replace it.
And because it doesn't fully support legacy.
Yeah.
It's better.
Well, we suffered through, we had FAT16, as we once called it, FAT32, and NTFS, and one thing was good for another, but not the other. And now today it's all NTFS, no problem. So we got there, but it took 30 years. I feel like REFS will happen. I think it will.
Yeah.
But it's not quite there yet. Yeah. So this one came out of nowhere in a way, but back at Ignite, Microsoft announced a bunch of features for Edge for Business, right? So it's not really a unique product, but when you sign into Microsoft Edge with your work or school account, you get these additional features related to management and so forth, and also separating personal and work related stuff, right? Okay. I don't think it's that interesting, but whatever. But one of the several features they mentioned then was something called a scareware blocker. And this week, they announced it's available now in preview, but it's for everybody. It's not actually just for Edge for Business. So if your Edge is up to date, Leo, you can go and you have to enable it. And it's one of those things where it's obviously they have the Smart Screen Defender technology for protecting against these kind of scareware things, but that's good for known scareware threats. This will use heuristics and AI to kind of examine what's happening in the browser. And if it looks suspicious, they'll pop up a thing and say, hey, this looks suspicious. Things that make it look suspicious are it goes full screen and they start playing a lot of warning sounds and it starts asking you for your bank account information, that kind of thing. So if you go, where is this?
I'm in the settings.
Yeah. So if you, on the left side, there is a privacy search and services.
Yes. Second item down.
Yep. Scroll down to security, the section.
Okay.
And if you have this, it will be the second item down. Is scareware
Microsoft Defender Scare Smart Screen. No, that's Smart Screen, which is scary by itself.
Yeah, it took me a couple of days. This is the first time I've actually.
So it's not up to date then, in other words.
Well, I updated my browsers and didn't see it immediately. So sometimes you actually have to, quit the browser, come back, or even reboot, whatever.
Oh, I can do that. Let's try that. Let's just quit it.
Well, Edge is tricky because it's kind of always running in the background.
Now I have to update. I'll be back when Richard returns.
So before you go, before you reboot, though,
yes,
you should make sure that Edge is actually up to date. Did you do that?
How do I do that?
All right, so go into Edge.
Okay, I closed Edge. Let's reopen it. Okay,
that dot menu up in the top right.
Yeah.
Bottom, second one from the bottom.
Settings.
Second from the bottom. Yep, that one. And I can't really read it, but third one from the bottom. It should say help and something.
Help and feedback.
And it should say something, check for updates.
Report and say, Send feedback report
about Microsoft Edge, maybe do that one.
Oh, maybe do that one. Checking for updates.
Okay.
Wow, that's a long way to go. Presumably, this would do it automatically eventually. You're right.
It will do it automatically eventually. Yeah. Everything.
So they don't want you to. They don't want you to be a seeker in this case. They want to. They hit it pretty effectively. It's like 3 menus.
Yeah, you
down.
wouldn't just find it, but I think that's part of the. I think that's part of the point, right? It's brand new. They're testing it. They want to get feedback. They want to make sure it's working the way people think, et cetera, et cetera.
So as soon as my Edge is fully updated, I will go to privacy search and services under security.
Well, actually, as soon as it's updated, you should reboot your computer and then then go do that.
Okay. And by then, Richard will be in Oslo, and we can continue with the show.
Yeah, only because that will ensure that Edge actually restarts fully, because sometimes you close Edge, it's just parts of it still running. It's
right.
A multi-hydra problem.
Yeah.
And then since this is a browser story, neither one of these are particularly huge news or anything like that, but it's a couple of browser company related things. So Vivaldi put out a new version of their browser on the desktop with even more personalization features, which is crazy. But okay, that's cool. And then Brave Search Brave, who makes Brave Search and the Brave web browser, added a feature called re-rank, which is a way for you to, as a user, customize how search rankings work, meaning you will see the sources you want the most toward the top of search results, and or not see the results or the sites or whatever that you don't want to see. So you don't have to use it, obviously, but if you feel like you're searching for something in particular, like, look, I only want to search from a certain whitelisted group of places, you can do that. So it's kind of interesting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
It also works with, or helps the answer with AI feature that's built into Brave Search, because it will generate more concise answers based on your curated list of search or ranked search sources, I think is the term. That thing. Okay. All right.
Which do you use now? Are you still a Brave guy? Browsing.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I am. I've been using Edge a lot lately, not because I like it, and certainly not because I hate myself, although you could make that case. I'm just trying. I have to update the book, and I've been using it. It's one of the things I don't like about Edge is how much you have to customize it per PC. It doesn't remember so many settings, so it's kind of annoying. And then there's the whole tracking Microsoft Force usage thing, but it's fine if you do your work. But yeah, I mean, Brave is still to me the way it's just the simple. You just get it. It's a super Spartan UI, super safe by default.
So just to reassure people, I have done all that you said. Updated Edge. Mm-hmm. I did the update, rebooted, and it's still not there. So
yeah,
it's a slow rollout or something.
That's right. This was my experience as well.
Yeah. Kev has it in our Discord. Our club member, Kev Brewer, who is a very wonderful fellow, says he just enabled it. That's probably something you should enable. It seems like a good thing.
I mean, I feel like this is mostly beneficial for people like our parents and our non-technical siblings and friends.
Yeah, but
I mean,
still.
No, definitely still. But I mean, like if that sort of thing popped up on our computers, right?
We'd know better.
I think we'd like, interesting.
We like to think we
we're not going to be fooled into giving credit card numbers because someone like in a full page web screen tells us there's something wrong with our computer.
Yeah. Right? No, I think we're probably smarter than that. One hopes.
But you can't. I mean, there's no reason to complain about it. It's a good idea.
Let us pause. We do have a nice AI section. I do want to talk about DeepSeek with you.
I might actually just skip over this till he's back, just to be sure.
Well, he'll be back. We have an ad.
Yeah.
So I'll do the ad.
Okay.
And with any luck, Richard will be back because we want to talk about AI a little bit. We will, and I should mention this, be talking about it also on Twig in an hour. But starting next week, Twig is rebranded. We're renaming Intelligent Machines and AI will be the focus of the show. No longer This Week in Google, but we are booking Ray Kurzweil for next month. He's the guy who coined the term intelligent machines. Right. What we're gonna try to do, besides covering what's going on, is get experts in the arena. Yeah. We're trying really hard to find somebody who can talk about DeepSeek knowledgeably.
So I have a tip at the end of the show that might be of interest. It's Microsoft centric, yes, but he's
good.
Good.
Yeah. We're making a list and checking it twice. And we definitely want to get experts on. And, I'm not an expert. Jeff covers AI. He does a show on AI with Jason Howell. Paris is a smart woman and the information is very much connected with a lot of these stories. But we want to get some people who are actually working in the field on as well to help us understand it better. So that's going to start next week.
I think having an AI-focused podcast makes tons of sense.
Well, I think all of our shows these days have a lot of AI, as does this one, because it is
mostly begrudgingly.
But that's part of why I want to do a show about it. Is this real? Is it not? Is DeepSeek BSing us? Likely. But is there some value there?
But does that matter? Well, so we'll get to this. We're going to talk about this because
I have it on my phone and I've been using it. And
me too. And it's like, yikes. I know. It's really good.
We used it yesterday for show notes for one of our shows. I think Security Now.
Nice.
And because we've been using AI to do show notes for a while, we've been using.
And then you found out there was a version of the podcast that went out in China before you were even done recording it.
China knew all about it. No, actually, Anthony was very impressed. He said this is better than what we've been getting. So very interesting. But Microsoft has a little bit of a complaint about it. We'll get to that in just a little bit. Ironic, isn't it? Ironic. You're watching Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. We will be back in just a moment. Our show today brought to you by those great folks at Melissa, the trusted data quality expert since 1985. I actually spent some time talking with Melissa a couple of days ago. They've acquired and built up a very, I think, mature and powerful AI side of their business. We'll talk more about that in the future. Some really interesting stuff going on. So they've been the address expert since 1985, since before AI was a twinkle in Demisibi's eye. But they still do that, but they've added so much to their capabilities. It's really kind of remarkable. And now they're now supporting, and you can see this in the Melissa Marketplace, integration with many of the apps you already use. And it makes sense, instead of validating your customer addresses after the fact, doing it on entry. So, for example, if you use Shopify, Melissa's address validation is an app in the Shopify App Store. And that is really the way it should be. Shopify Plus merchants get access to that critical data quality tool directly from the address expert. Among other things, you can get real-time address validation. So as a customer enters it into the commerce portion of your site, they're immediately notified if the address has errors or needs correction. Often it is on data entry that these bugs, these errors crawl in. And that can be a problem if you ship to the wrong address. It will reduce your return rates. And by the way, Melissa is not just a US or Canadian company. This app validates addresses in over 240 countries and territories. That's pretty much everywhere. Standardizing them according to the local postal regulations. That's really important. I just found this out. They don't have street numbers in Venice, Italy. So if you're address validating and you need to know this is Venice, okay, we're going to do this the way they do it. And that makes a huge difference in deliverability. Even if Google Auto Suggestion is enabled, Melissa's app can correct and standardize addresses better than Google. Adding missing components like postal codes, ensuring compliance with local formatting rules, as in Venice. They're different in every country. It's CAS and SERP certified. The address engine is certified by the United States Postal Service, by Canada Post. So you're getting reliable validation, of course, for all your North American addresses. But as I said, worldwide, you also get, this is really cool. Now, this is in the Melissa app on the Shopify App Store. So install this in your Shopify Pro, and the app provides a warning on the thank you page, that comes up after the order is placed, if there's a potential issue with a shipping address, which means the customer has one more chance to update their information before you process the order. I can't tell you how much I could have benefited from that. I want everybody to use this in their Shopify Plus store. Shopify Plus merchants can easily install the Melissa address validation app to improve customer satisfaction, avoid the costs to you associated with returns and redeliveries. Now, you may say, well, do I want to add another data place? But you should know Melissa treats this information as gold. It is securely encrypted for all file transfers. They have built their information security ecosystem on the ISO 27001 framework. They are GDPR compliant. They're SOC 2 compliant. I mean, they really take this seriously. So you don't have to worry. This is something absolutely safe, secure, and powerful. You really want this. It's just one of many things Melissa does. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free. You can try the API right there at the website, melissa.com/twit, melissa.com/TWIT. In the weeks and months to come, we'll be talking more about some of the new stuff that Melissa can do with AI. It's really impressive. melissa.com/twit. And it works with your Google and Microsoft platforms too. melissa.com/twit. Okay, yeah, let's talk about, all right, let's talk about earnings, Paul. As we wait, when Richard gets back, we'll do the AI segment.
Yeah, so for now,
4 o'clock at Eastern, when the markets close, which is
about an hour and 15. So I would say before the end of the show, we should have at least a quick peek at that, and then next week some more. But
any thoughts?
Yeah,
right now their stock is down 0.68%. So
right. So that's part of the whole DeepSeek story. There's the impact that it's had on stock prices. And I learned something actually as part of that. So I'm looking forward to talking about that. But their earnings are going to be gangbusters, right? But now there's going to be new scrutiny on the amount they're spending on AI infrastructure. And I might argue it's a little overdue. This is a company that's been spending $20-ish billion every quarter just building the infrastructure. Which is, again, a big part of that coming conversation about DeepSeek. But
when we get to this, I'll mention this. But there is something to be. I think there is. Certainly NVIDIA is tumbling because of this. But I think there's something to be said for the fact that this is good news because less expensive AI means more AI in more places, and in all likelihood, more use. Which means it's actually, I'm not allowed to. I don't allow myself to invest in tech stocks. But I'm not giving anybody advice. Mm-hmm. But if I were, I think this would be time to buy, not sell. I think this is short-sighted on the markets.
It's the early days. This is part of the whole conversation. Steven Sinofsky had a really interesting thing on Twitter X or whatever about how this is how disruption happens. This was always going to happen. No one thought it was going to be the Chinese per se, but the whole business model of big tech is spend an incredible amount of money that no other companies can spend to build out an infrastructure that no other companies could build out to maintain your dominance and continue into this new market. And to my simple kind of ape brain, what that is saying is, when you're a hammer, everything's a nail, right? And so no one at Microsoft was like, hey, how could we do this a lot cheaper? They were like, this is their competitive advantage. They were going full bore. So maybe this causes a little bit of a reset. But it always, not always, but many times usually takes a company from outside of that industry to disrupt it. Apple with the iPhone, Netscape. Whatever,
not necessarily a bad thing is all I'm saying. Obviously, he's going to, Satya and the CFO will be asked about this in the analyst call. Do you think they'll be cagey or candid?
Well, that's a good question. So, we're going to talk through half of this DeepSeek thing now because it's hard not to. But let me just tell you the part of the story I didn't. The thing I learned in this, because I cover all these earnings, but I'm not like a stock or money guy. Like I don't really understand these things. And it was interesting to me, like on Monday morning, all the big story was like how at the end of business on Friday, all the big tech AI companies, like the stock had all nosedived. So when I looked at that on Monday morning, I went through, 3 or 4 of the companies like Google, Microsoft, OpenAI is not a public company, but whatever, whatever they were, and NVIDIA. And except for NVIDIA, the stock price drop for each was single digits, 5-6%, whatever. It wasn't that bad. Oh, good, he's here, so we can just go right into it. But NVIDIA was 11%, I'm going to say, something like that. And I thought, you know what? This company is worth whatever the number is, $1 trillion. They could weather this kind of a hit easily, not a big deal. But so I wrote whatever I wrote. And then the day happened, and I'm reading and researching throughout the day. And at the end of the day, there was a story somewhere where they were trying to explain that this historic stock market event that occurred that day. And I'm like, okay, hold on a second. Because when I looked at this, it was like 6%, 11% at the most. I'm like, what are they talking about? So the history that was made Monday was that NVIDIA, which at the time was one of the top 3 companies by market cap, right? Their stock price dropped by, let's say it was 11%, because it is when I looked at it, but whatever it was for the day, it was 11%. Because of the overall value of their stock, it was the single biggest drop in value in a single stock in one day in the history of money. That it's never been that. In fact, by a factor of 2. The second biggest drop by total value is less than half of what NVIDIA lost that day.
But so that's more to do with the value of NVIDIA than it does the significance of the drop. So we haven't really talked about DeepSeek yet, Richard, but we were kind of walking into it sideways. But which
is, by the way, the best way to walk into DeepSeek.
Hopefully with a blindfold on. So yeah, like Satya Nadella, Sam Altman, and NVIDIA all released statements of some sort or talked about this to some degree. And all of them were in their own way telling. But the NVIDIA one, which I thought was very interesting, was they basically came out and said, look, we just want to remind everybody that all of these reasoning services, these LLMs require NVIDIA GPUs. And these guys used NVIDIA GPUs. Yes, they were prior gen, whatever stuff they could get from before.
The H100s, which are allowed in China around the chip block. But they did something very clever with them.
Yes.
And they wrote, in fact, their own low-level code to allow the process architecture to be speedy. So they're very smart. They just were smart. But, there's something in
driven by necessity, right? And that's how this stuff happens.
That's what's great.
It's
I love it.
Park. Life will find a way. Like when you are met with restrictions, whether they're artificial, like the export restrictions we have in the United States, are just natural, whatever it is,
or you're the syllabic count of a haiku or a sonnet. Yeah, it makes me more creative.
That's right. No, but it does, right? It does. That's where the innovation is going to come from. It's not going to come from a company that's protecting its business model, right? This is why Google didn't release some of this stuff years ago, even though they could have, because they looked at the impact it would have on search. Yeah. And they're like, we can't do that, even though it would have been kind of a.
I also wonder, they're master espionage folks too. Mm-hmm. So what don't we know?
And this is really important to point out: is you can't just take this DeepSeek's assertions as on face value. Oh, it only costs us $6 million.
Yeah, I think that's
$6 billion.
But in a Robin Hood sense. I don't. Maybe one of you guys remember this. This is a month or 2 ago, and it's a little overly simplistic. But someone somewhere had said, "Here's an idea. These AI companies are all stealing content from everyone. If you can prove that they've stolen content to feed their engines, and now they're making billions and billions of dollars on this, let's just open source them. Let's put that back in the public domain and have it benefit everyone." And there's a naive kind of part of me that's like, yeah, that actually sounds like a pretty good idea. And so did the Chinese just do this? Maybe, maybe, but
we certainly don't know the truth.
No.
So I think we also need to be clear about definitions, because it's really open source, which is a phrase Meta started using, is not an accurate description of this. In fact, the open source initiative says it's not open source. That means you could look at the source code. The training, there's 2 ways you can be more open about what you're doing. What did you train on? Which nobody at this point is admitting.
Okay, but neither is OpenAI.
No, very much not. In fact, they were started with the notion that they were, and they quickly decided, no, we're not going to tell anybody how we did this. And then there's the second part of it, the tuning, which the weights. And that is really what it should be: open weight, not open source, I think. Open weight means you're saying, here's what our weights are. And DeepSeek is open weights. Meta is open weights. Right. OpenAI is not open weights.
Okay.
There's, Microsoft complained, as did OpenAI, that it's pretty clear.
As I said to Brad this morning, let me get this straight. You stole a TV. Got home and someone stole it from you.
Yes.
And then you went to the cops and said, you will not believe the injustice here.
They used a process that's pretty clear called distillation, where you train your AI by interacting with somebody else's AI, asking it questions, looking at the answers. And you could do that at a very rapid pace with AIs, obviously much more rapid than you could.
Which is how the original GPTs were made anyway, where they still had people reviewing the answers and ranking them to build up a better training.
It's perfectly fine. That's what is normally done with an AI and that's the tuning. In fact, I have a friend whose company does this, and you tune it for the task it's going to, if it's coding or if it's generating protein folding, you tune it for that task, and you could do it in a manual fashion. Often you do, but you can now also do it in a mechanical fashion with distillation. I think it's fair game as far as I'm concerned.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
But this is what you want, which is everybody learning from everybody else, getting better and better.
Right. Well, it's what we want, right?
Not what these closed source companies want.
You do have to debate what was the motivation to release this thing, because they don't care about the income from it.
Right.
This is not a money making.
Well, it's destabilizing. They got what they wanted.
That's what they wanted.
My position is destabilizing only in the short term. There's something in economics called Jevons paradox. In fact, let me pull it up here so I don't misquote it. This is the Wikipedia article. And it says, when technological advances make a resource more efficient to use, thereby reducing the amount needed for a single application, exactly what's happened here. However, as the cost of using the resource drops, overall demand increases, causing total resource consumption to rise. Jevon noticed this in 1865 with coal efficiency.
Yeah,
The increased efficiency of coal led to the increased consumption of coal in a wide range of industries. I submit that's exactly what's going to happen here, which is why I'm bullish.
It's the same thing that happened with oil, right? Like, we continue to consume more and more oil. We use it dramatically more efficiently than we do.
And we know this in California because it's pretty funny, sad, but funny. Our California utility says, well, we have to raise rates because you guys are too efficient.
Right.
We're not making enough money. It makes us sad.
What are you doing? Like putting energy back into the grid? What is wrong with you?
They got mad. They said, you guys have cut down your consumption. So they've had 6 rate increases in 2024, trying to make up for reduced consumption.
There's a growing body of evidence to suggest that California might not be the greatest place to live.
I love it here, and I'm not moving.
All right,
unless it's to Mexico City or Oslo, there you go. Or London.
I live in a place where they back over plastic to crush it down with a garbage truck. I'm sure that's super efficient.
Anyway, I think it maybe is a short-term market destabilizer. Clearly, it is because
it was only a day. I'm already talking to people who quote unquote bought the dip.
I think honestly, and again, I said this before you came back, but I don't invest in these stocks. And you should never take stock advice from me, but I would buy Nvidia right now because it's a bargain.
Yeah,
right. Relatively speaking.
It's already on its way. It's already recovering. So it's
so this all comes out of the discussion about tonight. Microsoft's going to release its annual or quarterly report, rather.
Oh, good, because then we'll know what to talk about next week. I have to tell you,
it will be like it's a preview update
earnings,
for the next
learnings.
Show.
you know that FBI like break into the room meme where they all storm. This is biggest match FBI. I just had that happen to me at the convention center.
What?
Those guys were clearly on to me.
Are you doing a podcast?
Well, literally, you must clear the meeting building immediately. Immediately.
You can't. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
So,
wow.
All right.
Wow.
And and the internet is off. So
and by the way, it's a better connection here in your hotel.
I think you're totally right. Yeah. I mean, I don't have as much room. I didn't have time to tune the rig, but at least we got the audio. So
and Paul you should know, did not want to do the DeepSeek segment.
There was a lot of
presence.
Water treading while you were gone, but
I think you can make your way through Windows there, friend. Pretty sure.
So, have either of you used DeepSeek yet?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, I have.
Very impressive.
I'm actually really impressed with it. So I've used it mostly for some of that programming stuff because it's something I can kind of compare fairly easily. And it does a fantastic job with that. And I think the presentation's better too, if that means anything.
I love, and this is, O1 does this too, but I love watching the thing reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or appear to reason.
Well, it seems to be talking to itself. I asked it, for instance.
I wanted to. I'm sorry to interrupt. They should train it just on. I almost said Substack, not Substack. What's that? Stack Overflow. So every time you ask it a question, it would just respond with, "I don't know why you want to do that.
Why would you ever want to do that?"
It's like, do you have the answer? Because if you don't, shut up.
So I asked it, how do quantum computers work? It thought for 43 seconds, but instead of letting you sit there looking at a blank screen, it shows you the process as it's thinking.
Yes.
So it starts, okay, so I need to explain how quantum computers work. Where do I start? By the way, its English is excellent. I remember from my classes that regular computers use bits, which are zeros and ones. Quantum computers use something called qubits instead. But what's a qubit exactly? Wait, I think qubits can be both 1 and 0 at the same. Anyway, it asks. It's almost a Socratic dialogue with itself.
Right.
That it develops the answer, and then at the end, it gives me what I thought was a really good answer.
Maybe this is related.
He's supposed to down a quart of hemlock. But okay.
It's like in the old days where you had to keep someone on the line so you could trace the call.
Yeah,
it's keeping you like connected, so it can find out.
A spinning ball, but instead.
So what language did you give it, and how did it do, Paul?
C#, and specifically, Windows Presentation Foundation, because I'm looking at things that are related to certain UI objects that are in that particular framework, et cetera, et cetera. I'm trying to automate some things, and I've already asked these questions of GitHub Copilot, which is I'm not even sure if it is OpenAI. I guess it is. Might be.
I think it is, isn't it?
Is it not? I can't remember. But look, I've had. By the way, I've been talking about how great that product is. I finally had one. This is pretty good for me too, because I'm not a professional developer, but I wanted Visual Studio will do this thing where it says, it'll give you a little flag and you click on it. It says, you could write this line of code in a more efficient fashion. We could condense it down to something that's less readable, but maybe more efficient, whatever. So in the past, I would avoid that. These days, I embrace it. If you have GitHub Copilot installed, it's GitHub Copilot doing that. And it took this giant line of code and it was like, it's like it's down to this little thing. And I'm like, I don't know, that doesn't look right. And so I kind of ran through a couple loops with it. And I'm like, this is completely wrong. So I just stepped through it, trying to parse what it was doing. And I'm like, this is exactly the opposite of what I asked it to do. Mm-hmm. So I finally found an example of it just outright wrong, like just wrong. Yeah. So that was interesting for me. But there were some key things I had tried previously in GitHub Copilot, because there's the stuff built into the editor, which is kind of an extension of IntelliSense or whatever we're calling that. But there's also this thing on the side, like a chat box, right? And so you can say, I need to create a class in C# that will hold these things and has these kind of construct. You spell it all out. It blurts out whatever it blurts out. And honestly, I really like the DeepSeek stuff so far. I mean, so far it's been good.
Scott Hanselman was doing a presentation today, and he pulled out the Google Gemini Live, and basically ordered it. Hey, whatever I say it back to me in Spanish, except when I speak Spanish, and say it back to me in English.
Nice.
And then basically it was both sides of ordering a burrito.
I love it.
And it worked. And I realized, that's not an unusual translation tool. Those have been around for a while, but normally you have a UX to configure that you want to do this. The fact that you described it to it, it went, okay, and then just started doing it, lends itself a sense of entity that is, it's still software, but it.
Yep. I know. Well, even
it made all the difference.
The thing Leo was just reading was like the little bit. It's like when I was in class and I remember this. It's like, what are you talking about? You're not a person. But I that's interesting, because I feel like the attempts to make like personal digital assistants like Cortana or Siri, whatever, kind of fell flat. It was just like you kind of understood you weren't really fooled by it for the most part. Right. Maybe my grandmother was, I don't know, but mostly no. Whereas I feel like we're starting to fall for a little bit here. Like it's kind of it's getting better, like
that stochastic parrot is really kicking butt.
Yeah. So Richard, real quick, because this was in the Windows segment and you weren't here. I know you just did an episode about DevHome on, I guess, .NET Rocks.
Yes.
And they've deprecated it and they're removing it in May. from Windows. Did you know anything about that?
No, I didn't know anything about that.
So based on the timing, I'm assuming, well, they also mentioned that some of the key features are going to be
there must be moving it somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm right. So Dev Home as a product to me never made a ton of sense, but there's a couple of things in there where it's like, yeah, actually this is very useful. So I bet those are the things that are, and it will probably be built, I would imagine. But
I mean, the big complaint that came from it is that it's expensive.
Yeah. No, right. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. We're talking about two different things. You did a thing on DevBox.
Yes.
I'm sorry. They did not. I'm talking about
Dev Home. Dev Home.
My apologies. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Not the same thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
DevBox is staying around, but Dev Home is going away.
Okay. Yep. Sorry.
Okay.
DeepSeek. Yeah. So
Richard, if you'd like to go away and do something else for a while, and we can rewind, and then we'll start over.
I know, really.
Whoopsies.
I do recommend, because I guess I just do this now with him. Stephen Sinofsky wrote a long piece on Twitter/X about DeepSeek that I think is worth reading, regardless of how these things fall out.
Along with his book.
I recommend both. But yeah, as far as DeepSeek specifically, I honestly, his take, I was like, yeah, no, this actually makes sense to me. I think he's right. But.
Can you summarize?
Yeah, it was. Well, I did.
I know he wrote 18,000 words.
Yeah, he did. No, I sort of said this earlier. It was like and I paraphrase and make it super simple for my own stupid brain. But with big tech and AI and all the big infrastructure build outs and everything, once you go down that path and you see it as a competitive advantage, you don't really think about doing it differently, because doing it this way benefits you so much. You only have a couple of companies that could possibly compete with you. You've put yourself in a rarefied tier away from the rest of the planet. It's the perfect business model. So it takes someone else and he said, look, I never knew it was going to be a Chinese company, but I always sort of figured that some company would come in under the radar and say, we got to look at this a different way because we don't have those resources. How else could we solve the same problem? And this was kind of like a proof point for that kind of thinking, like that this was always going to happen. It was just a question of when, and I guess who was going to be doing it. So it's interesting. I tweeted or whatever this. I have no remorse whatsoever for Microsoft or OpenAI complaining that someone just stole their preciously stolen information. That's too bad.
Everybody's mocking them.
It's a little hypocritical, just a little bit.
I just give me a break. It's unbelievable. So.
Yeah. That is not the stone you wish to throw in this glass house.
It's unbelievable, but they're doing it. So it's funny because last week now feels like a million years ago in AI terms, right? Because the big story last week that Leo was surprised wasn't kind of the main story was about how Microsoft allowed OpenAI to go off and court other cloud vendors for infrastructure, essentially, whatever, as long as Microsoft said no first, right? And it was like, oh my God, does this mean anything, And so I went back after the show and I kind of looked into it more and wrote about it kind of formally. And I didn't really come away with a different opinion per se, but I sort of see this, or certainly at the time saw this as an evolution of not just their relationship, but the way that AI will kind of occur, out in the world. And now this has happened and it's like, yep, it's happening again. So when you think about like the relationship between Microsoft and OpenAI and how it's weird, frankly, it's a little strange. They had their flare up last a year ago, November, and Microsoft spent much of the past year opening new divisions and organizations around AI and bringing in other things, and almost like they're trying to make all their AI sort of plug compatible with other models. Yeah. Satya Nadella referred to LLMs as a commodity. And now you could make the argument that Microsoft may be able to use DeepSeek as leverage against OpenAI, or as another option, not meaning literally use DeepSeek, but say, okay, well, we could do that. We could do what they did. Sure. It might lessen their dependency on OpenAI.
Well, I mean, I don't know how dependent they are on OpenAI at this point anyway. They've been long before OpenAI was courting other cloud companies. They were happily working with Mistral and a whole variety of other LLM sources. when we talked about that being just from a point of view of an FTC threat, showing no, it's not that we have a special thing with OpenAI. We'll work with anybody. So none of this is news.
Hey, should we get Steven Sinofsky on the AI show? I wonder, maybe.
Let's baby step into that. I feel like I'm probably going to reach out to him sometime.
You're his biggest fan. All right, you get dibs.
He would not describe it that way, but I would like to talk to him. So let me see what happens first.
Yeah, you get him first.
Yeah. No, I don't mean it like that. I mean, but I feel like I have to do this kind of personally or separately.
Yeah. So. And then if you want to mention, there's this other show right after ours. You could be on our show and stick around.
You should definitely have him on that show. Yeah.
Well, this is this is a really interesting take. I wish
it's very thoughtful.
Does he post this on a blog instead of?
So usually he has a Substack blog,
right?
I don't know why he posted that to X instead of just putting it on his blog, but I don't know why. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh well,
maybe he felt there was a certain reach to it or something. I don't know.
That definitely is a reach to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be interesting to see if DeepSeek is open to like licensing through Microsoft, much less whether Microsoft would do that. We're busy trying to. They're busy attacking.
I think the embargoes would prevent that. Would be my guess. Probably
more or less. I mean, considering they kept Huawei out of 5G, I suspect we're not going to have a whole lot of movement on this thing. But
does Microsoft have a Microsoft China?
They certainly do.
Okay, well, that would be a way to do it.
I mean, they have multiple entities there. Like they have dev teams that work within the larger part of Microsoft, and then they also have their sales offices and business with China.
You know what the real wake-up call might be? Not so much an AI wake-up call as a reminder that China has some pretty good coders. China has some pretty good technology.
Yeah.
That China is not like some third world country that we're competing with here. This is a superpower.
They still qualify as a developing nation by
economic
standards. But certainly they have a large pool of people to work from.
Yeah. And they're very smart.
And they're largely controlled by a single individual who's decided that AI is important.
Right. They can prioritize that way. Yeah.
Yes.
That's okay. We're soon going to be in the same boat. So
we see this in their space program as well. Their rate of development on the space side has been extreme, and it's because an individual was able to say for an indefinite period of time, you will spend money on this and get a station going. And they've built that station in 4 years. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But it turns out if you throw a giant pile of money at it, you can have it.
Well, and that's going to be the argument, by the way, for us having a kind of monoculture, as it were, to compete.
Right. That is an advantage. It's just once that person doesn't think it's a good idea, there's really nothing you can do.
There's no recourse. It's not like you can say, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah. And they do have a nasty habit of putting people in jail that disagree with them.
Yeah.
And then apparently the first thing everybody asks DeepSeek is to show them a picture of Tiananmen Square. So
yeah, which it doesn't do, right?
Right. Unless you download it locally and run it locally, it does.
It does. You can run it locally.
It's the app
that's interesting.
that has the censoring built into it.
Yeah. So Geerling ran it on a Raspberry Pi just to show it was possible. It isn't good, but it will run on a Pi 4.
And it will tell you what happened at Tiananmen Square. That's interesting.
Yep. This factors into my tip at the end of the show. But yes,
as I remember, it said, "I am ChatGPT" at one point.
There is that.
I love it. It's wearing it's like Norman Bates with the wig on and the knife. It's like everything's fine. What's the matter? I'm ChatGPT. What?
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, this is
we knew this would. We live in interesting times, right? We knew that this was going to be this AI thing was going to be something.
About a company trading at 50 times PE ratio, and it's going to take a hit when anything threatens it. Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah.
It's NVIDIA's valuation is insane.
Right.
And
it's been riding high so long, and so uninterrupted. It's interesting, but
And I'm sure it's going to come back because this was an overreaction. And again, I think a certain number of people that went, "Oh, this is a useful overreaction. Let's buy the dip," and turn back to stock trading as gambling rather than as investing in companies.
It's only a matter of time before I'm running this on my Commodore 64. It's going to be great. So,
and your Commodore 64 is running in your Apple Watch, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Oh, I know now, according to Stephen Sinofsky, why the Norwegian Developers Conference is in London.
Oh.
Because even though Norway doesn't need it because it has considerable oil wealth, it raised its wealth tax to the highest in Europe and its capital gains to the second highest in Europe. So the influx of Norwegian millionaires continues. They're moving to the EU.
Where did you find this?
Weirdly, Stephen Sinofsky's
What's happening?
Twitter's.
That's bizarre.
Yeah. Most of them moved to Switzerland.
Yeah,
but
something is expensive when Switzerland is the cheaper option.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a good point. Yeah,
home of the $30 latte.
Norway used to have the most expensive Big Mac in the world for a while. I think
is that part of your research, Richard? As well,
like locally sourced beef.
No, I keep an eye on the Big Mac prices. Like Tokyo's back in top again, which is normal, but for a while there, Norway's been having a bit of a rough time.
Yeah.
Now, 3 years ago when you asked me what's it like going to Norway, it's like I feel like a burger and a beer, and it's going to be $50.
Yeah,
but it's now it's like $35. So they really took a hit.
I don't know where to go here. So, would you describe the weather in London as comparable to the weather in Mexico, or
why no?
Darker,
much more comparable
colder.
to back in Vancouver. It is gray and raining.
Yeah.
This is why we have a conference in January and my wife does not come with me. It's like, what are you doing in London in January?
That's funny.
If I wanted miserable weather, I'd stay home. And she did.
Yeah. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. So just a couple of quick wrap up things on OpenAI or an AI. So OpenAI last week, it's been kind of a flurry of small announcements out of OpenAI. This was before DeepSeek, but announced Operator. This is their agent-based technology for ChatGPT. Right now, it's only an option in that really expensive $200 a month tier or whatever it's called. But they're going to bring it to everywhere. Obviously, they want to test it with a small group first. But this is the technology that will go off. You give it instructions and it works on your behalf in the background. And every once in a while, it'll pop up and say, "Hey, we booked a flight," or did whatever it was you asked us to do.
I got your thing you wanted.
Yeah, that's cool. And then I just I've not used it, and I probably won't. But and this isn't in the notes per se, but I got an email from Google about Android Studio. Their latest version has whatever the feature is called, Gemini something built in, much like Copilot in GitHub Copilot in Visual Studio, right? And then right in the wake of the Samsung announcement, which I guess was last week, and that also feels like a million years ago. I'm having trouble with time here, but as they did last year, there were a couple of features that Samsung announced that came from Google for their phones, and then Google came out and said, "Yeah, don't worry, we're bringing a bunch of this stuff to our phones as well." And so there's a set of Gemini features that are coming to Android broadly, and then a set of features that are going to come to Pixel handsets specifically, and those are all supported versions of Pixel, so Pixel 6 and newer. And the big one, I think, there's a bunch of it. You mentioned Gemini Live. There's some improvements to that, and deep research integration and circle to search improvements. But I think the big thing here is actually extensions, right? And these are the things that give you the ability to complete tasks across, in their case, first and third party services, right? So you could, they've had extensions, I think, for a little while, but now they're supporting multiple extensions. So you could have it, I don't know what you would do this exactly, but, plug in Spotify and YouTube music and say, I want, whatever it is, a playlist of blah, 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 whatever. So I think this is the type of thing that's going to make this stuff just, I think, more broadly useful to people. And then I also got an email from Google because I'm a Workspace customer that they're bringing Notebook LM to Workspace, right? And I have the cheap Workspace, like the low end tier, the starter tier. I think I have 6 accounts, whatever. So I don't usually get much, but actually the standard version of Notebook LM is coming to basically all tiers, including mine. And then they have something called Notebook LM Plus, which is going to come to Workplace Standard and better. And I don't actually know the difference, but
you've used a Notebook LM.
Oh yeah,
it's
no, I made
cool.
I made a pod. In fact, I made a podcast out of a Stephen Sinofsky blog post. Remember?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
From quite a while. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually really impressive. So I don't know. Yeah, I will say the one thing that has not changed with all this stuff is that AI is just like an assault. It's just happening and happening and happening. You can't escape it.
They're trying to find the killer product.
I think it's doing it in a way, in the sense that like no one, would buy a particular word processor for their superior spell checker necessarily or whatever, but back in the day. But I do feel like it's just hitting everywhere. It's
this win by 1,000 cuts, right?
Yeah.
There's not any one thing. It's all of these things eventually says you're going to miss one of them enough. You're going to hang around with a bunch of them.
Yep. So if you're one of those guys, and if you're my age roughly, and you've been around a while and you're tired of this stuff and you're getting ready to retire, you got to get over it because AI is happening. And I'm not saying like embrace it fully, but you have to get past this is not real. It's a phase. This
too shall pass.
It's not passing. It's going to be part of everything.
We're on a path of rationalization, right? Like, this seems to be the year that we hit the bottom of the trough of disillusionment.
There you go.
But that doesn't mean it's over. That's when you start to climb out. It's like, I think the series of features that you're figuring out here is to find the value. Because I haven't seen anybody find value yet. I can't find the case study.
Right.
Except for GitHub Copilot.
I think that one they've actually come up with data. Right.
Yep.
Is what you mean. Yes. Which they have.
And data, I can now talk to other product teams, of other companies that have nothing to do with this industry.
That's right.
About what their life is like post GitHub Copilot. And it's this 25-30% productivity boost. Like, it's
the thing is, you could, and look, you could go to Anthropic or OpenAI or now DeepSeek or whatever, and it feels so random. Like you might assume that like a GitHub Copilot product might be optimized for Microsoft technologies or something. It's not. It's very broad. But I have
thing right. It's brilliant. Python really does.
Right. I could find out answers for things about C# from Cloud with Anthropic or Mistral or OpenAI or now DeepSeek, which I have done. And it's just everywhere. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody's trying, even the Chinese government.
That's right. That's right. I will say it's more believable that the Chinese were able to get this done than, say, the Russians.
Yeah.
If that means anything. I mean, I
agree.
That's kind of interesting to me.
We do need a Putin-seek, don't we? The
Putin AI. Everything just goes like it just turns it around. So he's the hero of whatever story.
And the answer is always a quote from Dostoevsky, right?
Yeah. In 1968, when Putin was leading the charge for what?
You're watching Windows Weekly with Mr. Paul Thurrott, Richard Campbell. Richard's in London, Paul's in Mexico City, and you're wherever you are. We're glad you're listening.
I am in the Curio.
You're in. Is that that's a good name? Is it the old Curiosity Hotel?
We overlook MI6 here. Like it's
how fun is that?
That's a little dicey.
Yeah, because it always blows up in James Bond movies.
Right. We're right beside the explosion site here. And then he went offline again.
That wouldn't be funny. That wouldn't be funny. So the earnings, 1 o'clock.
It's only like a half an hour from now.
We totally got this. We got this.
So if we just slow down a little bit, guys, you have a shot.
I've got the Microsoft investor site open just in case. I'll refresh from time to time.
Do you, you probably don't need to do this, but you listen to the analyst call, don't you?
Yes.
Or no?
Well, I read the transcript now, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's a better way to do it.
If you don't have your agentic AI read it for you, to give you
I'm probably only a matter of time, but just summarize this. It's like they made a buttload of money. End of sentence.
Again.
You know, they're good.
What are the learnings here? Be
They
Microsoft.
make a lot of money.
Yeah, make a lot of money. Yeah.
It's fun to make a lot of money.
Do you think there'll be any surprises? Anything we should be watching for?
No, I think it's going to be more of the same across the board. I think all the little weak areas like Surface are going to continue to be weak. Xbox hardware will continue to be weak. We've got some really good news about Xbox software, though, by the way, which we'll be talking about.
Okay.
That's probably going to be great. But that's been true with Activision Blizzard, right? And then, no, I think if you look at across the company, I think I guess the things I would look for, I want to see the exact figure on AI infrastructure build, CapEx, whatever. But I also want to see if they try to rationalize any profits, or not profits, but revenues from AI, and very explicitly, which they've done not really so far.
Yeah,
I know.
They will probably. Will they address? Go ahead, Richard. Nobody
until
wants to
it's a 3 comma number of revenue, they're not saying a thing.
Yeah. I mean, having listened to and also read these post-earnings conference calls, people are maybe a little too polite. And maybe that's why they get on the call. I don't know. But I feel like someone needs to be like, hey, I don't mean to be the wrench in the gear here, but it looks like you're spending a lot of money. Could you talk about that a little bit and explain when that's going to, I don't know, pay off? Because you are a publicly held company. It's reasonable to,
I guess they know they're not going to get a straight answer if they ask.
No.
Well,
the argument on, they were going to take this cash and do stock buybacks.
I'm glad. So I was just going to say there is a thoughtful response to that, and that's exactly what you just said, which is there's risk to this, but it's also high return probability. Whereas when you buy stock, there's nothing lower return than stock buy. Yeah. It's like we have a lot of money.
I run out of ideas. I just have money.
We're doing nothing with your money. Like this is something. Investors, look, you can be too aggressive, but investors want to see.
But there's another angle.
But investors like buybacks too, because it increases
direct revenue for them.
The value of their
But they don't actually need that revenue. They'd rather make more money later than less money now. And the big thing is the AI hype has been useful for moving municipalities so forth. Like there's going to be a real pushback against new data centers. And the AI hype, and we're making our country competitive, has gotten them able to get zoning through to get more data centers built. So even if the AI thing doesn't need them, they're still going to need these data centers eventually. This is a timing thing.
I live in the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania, which is a nexus of shipping lanes, and now by
several variations of Makunji.
Yes, that's right. At least 3. And our area is inundated by Amazon type warehouses. It's just and trucks on the roads all the time. I would give anything for those facilities to be data centers because there would be no trucks.
Yeah.
I listen, there are better, I'm not saying it would be a net gain.
Better neighbors. Yeah.
Yeah. They would be. I mean, unless there was a nuclear explosion, because that's how they're paying for it. But what are powering it? But I don't know. I would much rather have those be data centers.
You need to come to my nuclear talk, friend. That's not what's going to happen. But I'm with you. I do think it's a really interesting point that this is a physical investment facilitated by the urgency around AI that is valuable to the company regardless. Are they going to overspend a bit on it? You bet. Were they really going to be able to get all those locations more slowly? Possibly not.
Right. Yeah. I mean, right. I mean, even if you think DeepSeek is the end of the earth or something, I mean, would you go back in a Monday morning quarterback sense and say they blew it by doing what they did? No, what they did was actually smart. Yeah. It's the right thing for the company and for its shareholders.
Yeah. No, the downside risks are low and the upside is significant.
Yes. Yep.
And it really does beat the heck out of a stock buyback.
Oh my God. Yeah. Not even close. Yep, that's exactly right.
Unless you're Apple.
Now we just need to do 30 more minutes of this and we can have the earnings.
By the way, I didn't mention this, but I am wearing a number of devices which record, this is the Plod note-taking thing. This one you have to explicitly tell it, okay, I want to record this conversation. So it's probably legal. Okay. And then it sends it to either Claude or ChatGPT. This thing is the B computer that's always recording.
Right.
It doesn't have as good an AI on the other end. I applied, and I'm going to try to talk to these guys because I'm curious what their plan is. Because I think, at least in California, you can't just record everything. Can you, going on around you? It's a two-party state, which means you have to get the other party to agree.
I mean, Alexa's always going, right?
Yeah, but it's not recording. It's always listening.
Well, this is like in other words, you see someone on the street and you take a picture of them. And they're like, hey, what the hell are you doing? Like, you're on the street. I can take a picture of you.
I guess.
I mean, I
love this because
that may vary by.
Right now, it's dopey. It doesn't.
Yeah.
But as it gets smarter, and I think that's the whole idea. I have seen the output of Plot, and it's quite good. It'll do mind maps of your conversation. And
oh my God, my thing would be suicidal. They'd be like, "What are you doing with your life? Like, what is this?" You seem to talk to yourself a lot.
I want her.
Are you okay?
I want an assistant that's always listening, always available, always talking. I can say, "Who's that guy? What do you think about this? Plan." And I think it would be great to have that. And I don't think we're too far off when I look at the outputs of things like DeepSeek.
Right.
I feel like DeepSeek is my little buddy.
Well, I mean, as far as like storage and stuff if they're just taking text of what you're saying, you could store an almost infinite amount of that in anything,
Right. Yeah, it records, sends it off. You can save it, or you can just get the transcript. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, China.
China.
Your little
we know
buddy.
DeepSeek sends it all to China, right?
Yeah. Look, I just want the question about C#. I don't care where it goes. Could you just
who cares?
Solve the problem?
I'm not a spy.
I think that the TikTok nation made it very clear they do not care.
Nobody cares. Honestly, maybe the way you know somebody was a spy is if they didn't have any of that stuff.
Yes. What do you have to hide, sir?
It's like, that's the giveaway. Oh, I only carry a dumb phone because
those people like, everyone back away from this guy. What's going on?
Me and my StarTAC are very happy with each other.
I love it. There are a lot of shows about spy craft and stuff. I've just finished The Agency, which is a wonderful show. And he's always buying burner phones. Everybody's buying burner phones all the time. They don't.
I love when that's in like movies and TV shows, because I have never in my life even considered buying I don't even.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you're buying a burner phone, if you're not wearing an AI pin, you must be a spy or a drug dealer. One of the other. Yeah, you're up to no good.
That's classic.
I think. Did you talk about Microsoft closing the Experience Center?
No. So there's two minor Microsoft stories. One is a story out of Windows Central, Zach, I believe, that Microsoft will come out with smaller Surface Pro and laptop models with Snapdragon chips, lower end ones.
I hope they ask Satya about Snapdragon versus Intel. I think that's that's really interesting.
So Intel, by the way, will also be releasing their earnings, if it's not today, any day now.
God.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm sure the new CEO is like, right. Well, they have an interim CEO, I guess, but I'm sure they're on the straight and narrow now. They got it.
Hi. Oh, yes. We're here to talk about the last quarter.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, is this a funeral? What's happening?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So it's all Pat's fault.
Yeah. It's all Pat's fault. Anyway, I don't really care about smaller Surface anything, so I don't know why they're doing that, but whatever. And then
I'm interested in more Snapdragon.
Yeah, I am too, but I'm also interested in more Snapdragon, awesome Snapdragon.
Yeah,
not like how low can we go? Snapdragon?
Yeah, let's see how powerful.
Can we do like a next gen with graphics and everything?
Yeah.
So we'll see.
You want an Ultra 2, right?
Yeah. Yep. I want the next one, not like crappier versions of the existing one. So we'll see.
That Experience Center is about a 20 minutes walk from me. I should probably pop down. It's going to be gone in another week or so.
So is this, I've been to a Microsoft store in London. Is it Camden? What was the name of that place?
I think that's
Yeah. So at the time it was, I thought of it just as a Microsoft store, I guess. But when they closed all their stores, I guess they kept maybe two open as
sort of marquee stores.
Not technically a retail store, but it is a retail store. Like you can, Yeah. So that one was one of them. And now it won't be. They're closing in February. So
He said on January 29th.
Is that the last Microsoft store?
I mean, they don't even call them that anymore, right. But yeah, pretty much. I think
experience centers.
Yeah, like the old.
They sell stuff there.
Yeah, I think they did, which is what makes it the store. Yeah, very good. Well, they use a little differently. Okay. Yeah, like the New York store location
I'm here for the
a
experience.
While.
I don't have money.
Was they kept it. I'm not sure if they still have it today, but they kept it as a place where customers could come and have meetings and stuff and get hands-on with devices and whatever. But it wasn't a store. Like you couldn't buy stuff there after the closing. But
that's not a store.
That's not a store.
Somewhere you go to.
You make it sound so obvious. When you say it that way, it's kind of obvious.
All right, we're getting ready for the Xbox segment. How about that? That's going to be the excitement of the hour, ladies and gentlemen. And then in 24 minutes, Microsoft's earnings. So do it really slowly, Paul.
Well, actually, if you want, this sort of impacts Rich, or sort of impacted Richard slightly, but. One thing that happened to me over the weekend, which which grew into this incredible event, was on Friday morning. I got up and I was with Richard in Puerto Vallarta. I was going to fly back, and we got our stuff ready to go, blah blah blah, whatever, and did a little bit of work. And the guy who does our news, Laurent, texted. He says, "Hey, there's something up with the Twitter account. You have to go in and agree to something, blah, blah, blah. But it's like the 2FA is still on Brad's phone, whatever." And I was like, okay, no, I was like, this is not a big deal. I'll
handle it, man.
So the four of us went down to wherever to have breakfast, and we're standing in line and my phone buzzes and it's Brad. And he says, "Hey, I can't post the video we just recorded to YouTube. I've been locked out for some reason. So could you go in and just re-add me as a manager or whatever?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So we're standing there. I'm doing this on my phone and I can't get into my YouTube account. So I'm like, okay. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, I got to go. So I went back to the room and without going, I ended up writing a 5,700 word article about this event, which involved YouTube not helping me in the slightest and locking me out of my corporate channel, which I also have a workspace account attached to with 6 accounts, and not helping me in the slightest. And to get this account back, the short version is something on the back end changed and they reverted to like the old owner of the thing. And because that person was not responding to an email, they just turned it off one day. They didn't tell anybody. They just turned it off. The site was still there, the channel, but they wouldn't let anyone in.
Right.
So they said, all you got to do is go back to have whoever at Petri.com okay this. And I'm like, I have been separate from that company for 2 years. We made this switch May 2 years ago. I own it. I am literally the business owner. It is my name. They were not listening. So I had to go back. And the short version is the old owner of the company, the still owner of that company, brought back an email address that hasn't existed for 2 years, gave me the password. I got in, but then I had to do a 2FA whatever. And that Brad had this. So the first one, it said, go to your authenticator app and then give me the code. And I'm like, great. And then, but there were other options. And one of the other options was a phone number, but it only gave me the last 2 digits. I checked Brad's phone number. It was those 2 digits. I'm like, Brad, you're going to get a code. And he did. And I was like, nice. And then I got in. And then I went to change the owner back to me, which again, almost 2 years ago we had done. And I said, you got to do a 2FA. I'm like, no problem. But that time there was not an option. It was only authenticator. So I went to Brad and I said, listen to me. And this is like, depending on the answer of this question, I'm never going to get my YouTube channel back. I don't suppose somehow in Google Authenticator, you still have this 2-year-old account. And he's like, let me check. And let me tell you, the 10 seconds that took was a freaking eternity. And he came back with the code. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I only got into this thing through the grace of God.
Yeah.
So that didn't happen until...
And the inertia of Brad Sam's updating stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So I switched it all back. And then I got an email from YouTube and they were like, we'd like you to fill out this feedback form. And I was like, oh, I'm going to fill the hell out of this feedback
form. Oh, yes, I will.
Let me tell you, it was unbelievable. It was just so horrific. And there was more going on. There was other things, but there was a moment where I had trouble also with my business PayPal account where you're getting 1099s and stuff.
Yep.
When we arrived in Mexico from Puerto Vallarta, it was a domestic flight, no problem, no customs. We made our way out. Quickest thing in the world. It was wonderful. And I'm standing there on the curb and I'm calling Uber. And at first it was fine. And then it did this weird loopy thing and it was like canceled and then do it again, but now it won't show me a price. And I was like, am I under attack? I'm like, what is this? Like, is something going on? Yeah. You know, I had a moment where I was like, I'm not sure I'm okay here. Like, this is really
hardly
weird.
Possible, yeah.
So I was like, Stephanie, could you call the Uber? And she's like, yep. It's like, boop, he'll be here in 2 minutes. And I'm like, oh man, like what is going on? But anyway, it was not an identity attack, thank God. But it was just a bunch of weird coincidences. But Richard, if you were wondering if I was, I don't know, overreacting or whatever, when I left for breakfast on Friday morning, I can assure you I spent the rest of the weekend freaking out trying to get my thing.
I saw the calm version of you on Friday.
Yeah, it got worse and worse. I literally said this. I was on the plane and I was so strung up from this. Mm. I was like, I don't know. It's going to take me hours to calm down from this. I am freaking out. And everything you think you own can be taken away from you in 1 second, you know?
One of the requirements I had for myself to actually start moving all my stuff to M365 is a local backup of it.
Yes. Right.
And so if I got locked out of the account for whatever reason, at least I have a snapshot that's no more than a day old.
Right. Right. Yeah. So I mean, separate from, no, I guess tied to this, we were now in Mexico City. It must've been Sunday or something. The two of us, my wife and I, were going to take an Uber. And I was talking to her about this. And I said, if I get hit by a bus right now, which I honestly, at this point I would take, I feel bad that you, or maybe someday the kids, will not be able to figure any of this out. Like, like I use a password manager like you do, and the thing is, like, I'll go to, like, with my business, especially there are certain services I pay for and use or whatever, but I'm not on them every day. I don't think about them, whatever. So every once in a while, someone deliver it or something will be like, you got to do something, whatever. So I go to the site and I'm like, okay. And I'm looking at it like, I don't even know how to log into this thing. So, you click in the box, you're like, maybe the password manager comes up and it doesn't. And you're like, all right, I guess I'll try Google next. So I try the Google account and actually usually that does work, but I feel like I need to document this. And I think I want to back out of the times where it's I don't know how you would do this, but I kind of unwind it because it's such a convenience to sign in with an online account like Google or Microsoft, especially. But you see it sometimes with Facebook and Apple and whatever.
But it just usually means you have a locus point of failure.
Yeah, and a random right. So if I have accounts at like 200 services, sites, whatever, 75 of them are going through my Google account, which is a corporate workspace account. They could just flip a switch today, and I'll never get back into any of that stuff. And I've actively gotten rid of all of those, everything through the password manager. I literally made a to-do to work on this. It's not something I can finish this weekend or whatever. It's going to take time, but I think this is necessary. This is a problem. Like, this,
and your wife's not on your password manager, right?
What do you mean? Like, she's not using the same one and can't get into my stuff, that kind of thing? Right. No, like, not right now, but that's going to change.
I've got her using the family account on Bitwarden so that we have all the household accounts in a shared space so that we both have access to them.
There's also in most password managers a feature where you can designate a
like a life. Yeah, like someone who's
yeah. So when I die, and they can request. The way it works, I think for Bitwarden is that they can request access to Bitwarden, and I'm informed if I don't respond.
So here's a weird thought.
Like in a day or 5 days or a week or whatever.
Yeah.
Even given everything you guys know about security, right? Anyone would tell you a 2FA off of a phone number is insecure for some reason, right?
Right.
We all know this. We all know this.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Let's say I'm out in the world and I'm in Mexico and I get robbed and someone steals my phone or I lose my phone, whatever it is. Right. I could walk into a store, buy any phone, $200, doesn't matter. I'm using a Google Fi eSIM downloaded to the phone. I use Google Authenticator for almost everything. I will get my phone number back and anything I do through Google Authenticator instantly. Like recovering my phone number is easy.
Right.
Recovering an online account might be impossible, So I get it, but I'm literally not saying everyone go back to MM or SMS or whatever it is. MMS, SMS,
Well, that's the point, is it's easy for you and it's easy for a bad guy to get your phone number.
I'm just, look, nothing's perfect. I get it. But
that's really a rule in security. If it's convenient and easy, it's less secure.
No, I understand. I don't mind a little bit of work on my part.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned with, I got locked out, right? So to this day, I've yet to get into my PayPal business account to get the 1099 for my taxes. And I think it's because I'm in Mexico. I spent 40 minutes on the phone with them so far.
Yeah, it probably is because you're in Mexico. That makes it suspicious.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I have VPNs. I can make it look like I'm,
No, but they know you're on a VPN.
I know.
Yeah.
But I went, this is a separate, but tied into all this. Because I couldn't get in, they were like, we have to go through this extra security thing, scan your ID, scan your face. And then I did. And they're like, yeah, we can't let you in. I'm like, guys, this system is broken. I don't understand. How much do I have to give you to prove that it's me? But
the good news, though, is that the method Elon used to make Twitter only barely break even, he's about to apply to the federal government. So this is going to be an exciting time.
I'm glad you brought up Twitter. So I mentioned the first thing that happened on Friday was Laurent saying, hey, by the way, we got to do something in Twitter. And it's not my Twitter account. It's like the Thurrott.com Twitter account, right? And
that's yours. But that's yours.
Is it? So I haven't been able to get into it. So I went through. If you try to go to the Twitter support, if you ever,
there is no.
It's an oxymoron.
They send you a poop emoji.
This is what I was told eventually. They said you have to pay for Twitter Premium or whatever for us to even think about what you're asking us.
At least they're honest about it, because frankly, that's probably true of Google too.
Got $20? Maybe I'll think of it.
I'm paying for 6 accounts at Google, so they didn't help me in the slightest.
Right.
So I hear you, but that did not buy me anything. Yeah. Not a thing. So anyway, I'm sorry to rant there, but just.
Well, we always said Google's support is via Python script.
Nice. I'm stuck in a loop.
Twitter support. It doesn't even have that.
Twitter support is just go to 10 and there's no 10. Yeah. It's like all this stuff is so convoluted. It's unbelievable.
Do you think you could say this isn't shitification, but I think maybe it is also that we have decided to really rely on technology.
Like too much.
A little too much.
Well, yes. You just said it. You said you were talking about convenience versus security. We all choose,
right?
Well, not all, but most people choose convenience. I think there's a happy medium, but I think my happy medium might be shifting to never, where possible, or at least for things that matter,
right? Not
use the account that could lock me out later, like have my own account that's mine, that no one can lock me out of. And whatever that means.
Well, that's why I have my own blog, and then that cross posts to the social and things like that.
This was, Richard, I don't know if you listen to Scott Hanselman's podcast, but this is literally his latest episode is about this exact topic. Why you don't go to a Medium or Substack or whatever, because you don't really, you're promoting their business. You don't own your stuff, yeah.
Of course, now both X and several others are becoming financial institutions.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense to me.
So now your money, they'll also have that.
I can't even trust you with my ideas. You want to put my money in your thing? No,
it's the Everything app.
It's the Everything. It's the Everything is Terrible app.
Yeah,
is what it is. I really got to figure this out. This is going to be a thing for me this year. This was eye-opening. We've all heard stories about people who are like, oh, I just lost all my family's photos because Google or whoever arbitrarily decided not to let me into my account. And sometimes, look, the person did something. I don't know. But a lot of times it feels like it just kind of happens and you feel like,
what are you going to do? Yeah.
What are you going to do? I can tell you it doesn't matter what you do because you never get it back.
If there's a human on the other side, at least you have a shot. But if it's a machine on the other side,
see, I tried to condense this down because really, who cares about the whole thing? If you do care, it's on my site. It's a brutally long story. But the thing I went through in the hotel room before you guys got back from breakfast was me getting on a chat line with some idiot from Google or whatever. And she said, can you send me a screenshot I'm like, yeah, I can, but it's exactly what I just said was happening. She's like, well, if you don't mind. I'm like, okay. Now, could you sign into the browser with an incognito window? And I'm like, I can, but
she has a notebook that she's working her way through that has absolutely nothing to do.
Well, the next one was, I need you to record a screen recording of you signing into this account. And my response was no. And the reason is that will not show you anything.
Right.
And she's like, well, I'm sorry, we can't really go any further. We have support that they need this. And I'm like,
I'm at this page. If you don't get me past this page.
So I did. I made a screen recording like a jerk. And then I'm like, how do I get this to you? She's like, just put it in Google Drive. And I'm like, what does that mean? Is there a URL? You want me to put this in my Google Drive where it's going to take up space and cost me money? I can't just send this to you? Anyway, I did because, I'm stuck. And wait, please wait, and blah, blah, blah. And then I think you guys had already come back by this time, but it took about an hour. And they were like, yeah, we're going to have to get back to you.
Did you notice when you saw him again that he was a little frazzled, Richard?
Oh, yeah.
I was losing I felt so bad about the way we left on Friday because I was out of my mind.
Oh, yep. I'm sorry. Is this in the premium section or is this in the regular section?
The premium one, yeah.
Oh,
I think it's...
I'm going to log in. I want to read the whole.
It's not the longest thing that I've ever written, but it is one of the longer posts of recent memory for sure.
Worthy of a Sinofsky post.
Yep. It is it's a long story. And it's more like I said, the more we talk about it, the more I'm reminded of other parts of it. But yeah, I had I was so traumatized the entire weekend.
It's an important lesson that I'm glad you wrote it up because it's not, there's one thing to say it happened to you, but this is something that could happen to everybody.
Yeah. And look, I kind of know what I'm doing. Compared to maybe the average person. So Richard will appreciate that the image that's at the top of this article is from Puerto Vallarta.
That's a great sculpture. This is how I felt for 3 days straight, says Paul.
It was not great.
All right. Well, it's not done, right? It's still
no. So it is done now. And,
good.
But it wouldn't have been done if Brad luckily did not somehow, and I don't know why he does, have this old account still in his Google Authenticator app.
Oh, thank God.
I would have been locked out of my entire channel forever. That would have been the end of it. Right. They literally threatened me. I published most of what they wrote to me in the chat thing in that article, so you can see it for yourself. But it's like, you're just like talking to me like I'm an idiot. Like I didn't do anything. Something changed on your end.
It's your fault.
It could result in losing full access to your channel. Don't want that to happen. Like, whoa.
Could be gone.
Yeah, that's not good.
And by the way, I should point out, probably people think, oh, well, Paul's got connections. Paul could work this. This isn't. He could figure this out. Nope.
I just speaking logically, the way I look at it is like I'm a paying customer. I am a business.
You're not even a free customer. That's the funny.
I'm not freeloading on anything. I just nothing. Okay. Interesting, because I had to prove to you that I was the owner of this business 2 years ago, and I did. And I don't understand. I don't know. Whatever. It's just so frustrating.
Wow.
You really have to get rid of that Brad's Authenticator thing.
That's gone. So that account, now I am in control of that again. But the thing is, I love
this CJ. Do you think CJ is an AI? Hi, this is CJ stepping in.
So I made fun of that. I was like, first, CJ stepping in is meaningless to me. Who's CJ? Like, should I be impressed by this? Are you someone I should know? Like,
this is the CJ.
Yeah. I'm like, the CJ. Finally, I've been waiting for you to step in the whole time.
CJ's here.
Now stuff's gonna happen. Like I
could sense how important it is for you to have your channel back.
Oh, this is because clearly
AI,
mind?
Paul. I just want you to know.
Okay.
This has all the earmarks of an AI written email.
The way that the one thing I didn't save was the chat transcript from the original chat, which I sort of assumed I'd be able to get to. In fact, they told me I would get it via email, but it never arrived because the way this chat started. Now that you meant to say again, I keep remembering things. The person, whoever's got on, said, "Hey!" Exclamation point. How are you doing today?
Yeah.
And I said, no, we are not doing that. Solve my problem.
Stop it.
I'm like, nope, I'm not even going to pretend to be nice to you. Stop. You shut me out of my account.
I like CJ.
With you?
Hi there.
I hope all is well. CJ,
Hope all is well.
Is not well. And the reason you can tell that is because I'm chatting with you right now.
Nobody chats with you when they're happy, CJ.
Yeah. CJ, yeah, exactly. I don't just come to you when everything's going great.
Idiot.
God, it was a miserable
oh my
weekend.
God.
Yeah, it was not good.
But it's it's a mortality reminder, right? It's like
that's right. You don't own any of this crap.
Yeah, we can end you anytime.
Mm-hmm. You don't own it.
And not only that, we can end you and not even notice that we have.
That's right. Yep. You talk to me wrong a little bit, and I'm going to flip a switch, not tell anybody. We'll see how it goes. You know?
How's your account now?
I mean, truthfully, I don't know. You can get screwed so many ways.
I know. So I guess I think this is a good reason to start looking at this stuff and to lower the exposure.
Mm-hmm. Lower your good phrase.
What's the phrase, Microsoft? The lower your attack surface.
Yeah.
And I think I have, as much as I talk about this stuff, I'm not perfect. I'm not an expert really in security, but I am perhaps relying a little. I can't do anything with YouTube, right? That's going to be a Google account, of course, but I gotta listen. Someday I'm not going to be able to get into the company that's hosting my website because it's tied to my Google. I'm not even sure if it is, but let's say it is. And now what? You know what I mean? Like if everything goes south, everything's really going to go south.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. It's just God. That's why I'm going to live in a cabin in the woods by myself.
That's the only solution.
Well, for Ted Kaczynski, obviously.
Yeah, that went great. And
now you know why he wrote that manifesto.
He's got a lot of writing done. I mean, he used paper and pen, but whatever. Or a typewriter, probably. I don't know what he did, but
just those few trips to the mailbox, right?
Well, just remember, Battlestar Galactica survived because it was not hooked in to the corporate network.
Yes.
Their phones still had wires.
That was, that delightfully old-fashioned stuff inside the spaceship from the future. the actual phones. Right. That's right. I'm still trying to convince my wife to watch that, by the way.
It says so much about Ronald Moore's mind, right?
Yeah.
That's how he took him out.
You're watching a fabulous episode of Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott is in. No, it is. It's a great episode. Paul's in. The more personal you are, the more I like it. Paul's in Mexico City suffering.
Well, actually, I
not anymore.
Renamed the show The Torment of Paul.
The Torment of Paul.
It's better now, but just thinking about I'm getting worked up just thinking about it, like how terrible it is.
Torments of St. Paul.
It's not good.
Someday people will remember you. There'll probably be a parade down Main Street with your mutilated body as a
I'll go out like Mussolini.
Yeah,
it's okay.
You're watching Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott, Richard Campbell, Leo Laporte. We're glad you're here, and we will even be more glad when you become a member of Club TWiT. You are a member of Club TWiT, aren't you? If not, I'd love to invite you to join. There are a lot of benefits, one of which is ad-free versions of all the shows. You wouldn't hear this. You wouldn't hear any of the other ads, including the inserted ads for, things you don't really care about. Just, get rid of them all. You also, and it's both for audio and video. You also get video for shows like Hands on Windows, Paul's great show, that we only put out in public in audio. You also get special events that we do in the club. We've got some coming up. Chris Marquardt's photo show is coming up in just a couple of weeks. We have Stacy's book club. We still haven't set a date for that. But the photo time is February 6th. Micah's Crafting Corner. The next episode is February 19th. Yeah, we're in February already. You get a lot of benefits, but the biggest benefit is the warm and fuzzy feeling knowing you're supporting this network and the shows we do and the programming we do. We do have advertising, but the ads do not cover the costs. And that's despite the fact that we shut down the studio. I just got some good news. We won't have to pay the lease after in 2026.
That's good news.
It's better than nothing news.
The alternative.
Yeah. So we have paid for 2025, but we don't have to pay for 2026. So there you go. So shutting the studio saved us money. I sad to say we did have to cancel some shows, lay off some staff, but I don't want to do that anymore. I would like to add shows, and I would like to do shows that really fit your interests. So join the club. That's the best way to support what we do, and it's not expensive. $7 a month. Please visit twit.tv/clubtwit for all the benefits, and thank you in advance. We really appreciate our club members. The Discord's a great hang too. You'll have a social network of really smart, interesting people, and that is not nothing. That is not nothing. Also, if you're not a member of the club, we would love to get you to take our survey, twit.tv/survey. It is, I think, last day today or tomorrow. It is the one thing we do once a year to find out more about you so that we can, A, target our programming towards you, and B, let advertisers know what a great bunch you are. Nothing individual, just as aggregate. That is one of the ways best way, frankly, that we have to sell advertising on the network, is just be able to say things like 75% are IT decision makers and things like that. So if you would, last chance, twit.tv/survey. If you haven't done it yet, shouldn't take more than a few minutes. And it's also a great way to help us out. So there's two things you can do to help us out. And thank you very much for your support.
Is that Patrick Norton? Is that what is that a picture of?
Who?
In the Discord?
Oh, I don't know. Let me go look.
It looks like you're sneaking up behind somebody, but it was like...
It's probably Patrick. Yeah, that's Patrick Norton. Blowing something up. Yeah.
In a while. That's funny.
Yeah, that's an old Screensavers promo.
Yeah,
is what that there is.
Oh, there's a whole little thing there.
Yeah. It's the Screensavers blowing
it's like
up.
You're like you're putting the trigger, right?
That's pretty much the way it was, to be honest, on the show.
You're like, hey, go open the door.
My favorite moment, Patrick had a sledgehammer. He was famous for his sledgehammer and his kilts, which really, if you think about it, that's probably two things that shouldn't go together.
Nope,
but anyway,
they should never go together.
No.
Get squeamish just thinking about it.
We were doing a segment showing you how, this is 25 years ago, how to destroy your hard drive so that the data is not recoverable by, federal agencies or whatever. And so he opened up a hard drive and he said, one thing you could do is hit it with a hammer. He did. What he didn't know is that some hard drives are not metal, they're glass. And in this case,
oh boy,
glass shards. I'm very lucky to have both my eyes at this point. That was very crazy moment. On live TV, no less. But we learned something there. Sometimes they make them out of glass.
That you hit with a hammer.
Well, it's like a home renovation show where they just attack the wall. It's like, do you want to see if there's electricity in there or plumbing? I mean,
that in a nutshell was Patrick. He was great. That's why we love Patrick. He's just like, I don't know. Let's just see what happens. There's also the time
alive, huh?
Yeah. The time Kevin Rose decided that the best way to destroy an old hard drive was to blow it up with thermite.
That's a good one. I like that one.
So he put it in his backyard and the whole PC and put thermite. Can you even buy thermite nowadays?
You just have to make it. It's not
you just
I got the recipe.
What is it? Is it rust and
it's aluminum oxide and iron oxide and a little bit of magnesium, and you're good.
It's in there with like the blueberry muffin recipe and the apple pie recipe.
Just ask DeepSeek; it'll tell you. What we didn't tell you is don't do it in your backyard. He practically set the whole place on fire.
Yeah,
so
you can't put it out. That's how I know. But it does make lovely glassy jewelry artifacts out of hard drive.
Okay.
Oh, Lord. Those were the days. There's nothing like live TV. It really isn't.
It's funny.
So let's talk Xbox, Mr. T.
Real quick, though, there is some breaking news, not earnings related, but Microsoft has added DeepSeek. I have a hard time saying that word, by the way. DeepSeek R1 is now available in the model catalog on Azure AI Foundry and GitHub.
That's hysterical. So Hugging Face did that a couple of days ago as well. That's hysterical. Now, is that the local version?
Yeah, I believe. Let me see. Yep. Oh, well, actually, no, not necessarily. So coming soon, customers will be able to use distilled flavors of DeepSeek R1 locally on Copilot Plus PCs.
Distilled flavors actually are the name of the segment, the whiskey segment. So
distilled flavors. Nice.
I thought it was something weird from my closet.
Oh, how is this thing not here yet? I keep looking at the investor page. Okay.
Of course, they're going to be late. They're waiting until you finish the show.
I know, it's bastards. Okay, it's okay. All right, so I this is a rarity, but I have some good news this week for Xbox. And the first one is that Microsoft is now the biggest game publisher in the world.
Wow.
$465 million was spent on Microsoft games worldwide in December. Second biggest company is EA, which is, I think, was 300 and something million. So it's not even close. 366. Yeah. So obviously Call of Duty was a big chunk of that. Some interesting, this is like a third hand report because it's like Ampere came up with the data, but it was reported by a video game publication and no one else has access to this report. So I'm just going off what they said, but 64% of spending on Microsoft games in December was for PlayStation.
Wow.
Yep. Mostly Call of Duty, right?
For that complaint to the FTC.
I know. But you said... Okay. I always knew that was nonsense, but anyway, that's beautiful. So that's good. And then semi-tied to this, obviously the Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard, controversial. And then the Microsoft strategy is still controversial in our little community here. People who believe that it should just be about the console and blah, blah, blah. So Phil Spencer's been pretty vocal lately. I mean, he's usually pretty vocal, but he's given a bunch of interviews where he said some interesting things. One is that with this generation of consoles, Microsoft made it a requirement for game makers to target the Xbox Series S, but also target the unique capabilities of the Xbox Series X, whereas that's not the way they've ever done it in the past. They've never come out with two tiers at one time, right? So what he said this week, one of the things he said was that requiring developers to target the lower end specs of the Series S machine will actually benefit the company when they come out with a portable gaming device of whatever kind. Because now you've got this thing that has to run with, reduced resources and be respectful of battery life and so forth. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Like the scalability of the games is going to benefit a coming generation of portable video game machines because maybe they add a tier, however they do it, but it will be like it's just part of the system.
That's their Xbox everywhere, right? That's the
it's part of it. Yeah, it's part of it. But I mean, it's one of the arguments against this strategy is, well, you have this higher end device. I mean, don't you want them to take advantage of the unique capabilities there? But they actually do require that. But even Microsoft itself, some of their studios, I think this happened with StarCraft. What was that game? StarCraft, where it didn't support 60 frames a second at whatever resolution when it first came out, but it did later, like they added it later on the Xbox Series X. I don't know. Whatever. He also was asked by a different interview, I think it was, but on a different interview, about hardware. And it's like, you guys are like cross-platform and blah, blah, like why would anyone buy an Xbox? Yada, yada, yada. And his answer is exactly what you thought it was, or what you might imagine, which is like, look, we still make hardware. It's critical for us. I made a crack about it on Twitter, like critical condition, I think you mean. But people buy Xbox hardware for a very specific reason. But he's like, look, I don't want to lock out gamers. Like we publish games. Like we want to reach the biggest possible audience. And so they'll, again, promising we're still going to make hardware, but really the platform is bigger than just that hardware. And then since I think was it late last week, whenever they did the Xbox Developer Direct event, the way I would describe this is no real surprises, but really well met. Like this was an event that gamers, I was looking at some of the stuff on YouTube about this. Like I don't think I found anyone complaining about this. Really, everyone's really excited about the games. It looks like a solid lineup. I'm mostly concerned with that Doom game, which is coming out in May. Trying to make it more like the original Doom games, which I think is a big deal because my initial reaction to the modern games like Doom 2016, I think, was just that it was like you were kind of sliding around like you were on ice. Like it didn't feel the same. And they've added some verticality to the more recent games. So now they're going to kind of bring it back down to earth and go back to basics with this one. To me, it looks great. So we'll see. So yeah, just something to look forward to. A bunch of looks like a solid year for games, especially if you're on PlayStation.
Own Doom?
Yes, because Doom was id Software, which was bought by Bethesda.
Oh, that's
right.
It
was bought by Microsoft back in
Max.
Yeah.
That's how you become the biggest game publisher in the world.
Get to the top of the roll-up.
Yep. Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like the Activision Blizzard thing has been kind of not a net negative, but it hasn't had the boost I expected. Like last year. I often, you probably don't remember, but I sometimes complain they don't bring the games out on Game Pass. And I'm like, what are they doing with this thing? But then you see something like this, you're like, oh, right. Like your goal is to be one of the biggest game makers in the world, and you are in fact the biggest game maker in the world. So that's why. That's why they spent the almost the tens of billions of dollars, whatever the figure was, to buy that company. So
the working. Old adage in investing is you buy on the rumor, you sell on the news, right? And so the stock maybe went up before the results, but the results are out. They're good, and yet.
I know. There's no way we can do any analysis here. But so Microsoft revenue was up 12% year over year. Net income, I don't care, it's 10% year over year.
They exceeded expectations by 4%. On their earnings per share.
That's fine.
Well, but that's when you expect the stock to go up. But
so the growth stuff, blah, blah, blah. Oh, geez. So more personal computing, there was no growth in revenues. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Is that Surface? What is that?
It's Windows. Windows from PC makers.
Okay.
Devices, which is Surface, Xbox all up. Xbox content and services revenue only increased by 2%.
Huh.
Interesting. I guess
the year of the PC. I think it's a year of the PC.
Is it this year?
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations!
I know. I feel like we're due. So I'm just trying to see if there's anything in here real quick. There's
a little dead cat bounce. That's good. Boing.
Commercial.
Going up.
Microsoft 365 commercial growth 16%. That's good. Server products. And cloud, Azure 31%. It's been there for a little while. Windows and PC Maker revenues increased 4%. Like I said, Xbox 2%. That's lower than I would have thought. Go back to this. What do they got? Gaming revenue declined 7% overall. Hardware declined 29%. How low can that go?
You also taking a lot of hardware off the market too. So
that's a tough one though. Yeah. All right. Well, next week we'll go into more detail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We want a thoughtful earnings.
But they did revenue, $70 billion in revenues. I think,
let me
they're
go behind you guys. I'm going to have to get over to the other side. There we go.
They're going to weather the storm.
Weather the storm. Okay. Let's. I think we're ready for the back of the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think we're ready for the back of the book. We got a little learnings. More to come next week. Windows Weekly.
Earnings fly by.
Paul Thurrott's tip of the week.
Yeah. So tip and the app pick are both very Microsoft centric, which I guess makes a certain amount of sense.
Well, it is Windows Weekly.
Yeah. So in the sense that I do this with podcasts, like Richard's podcast, for example, I don't listen to every single episode, but I look at look at what the topic is. And like some of them are like, oh my God, I have to, I have to, right?
Right.
And so I do that with a lot of things.
That's why, by the way, people often tell us, my staff mostly, you really ought to say what the show's about in the title of the show. And I say, no, that's exactly what you don't want to do.
I do not want
then somebody
anyone,
can go, I don't care about that and not listen.
Right. That's funny.
I like to be obscure.
There's a guy, Dave Plummer is a guy who was on the original NT.
Oh, I love Dave's Garage.
Yeah,
that is.
He's he's an OCD ADHD guy, and
you could tell. Yeah,
I met him
deep dive guy
briefly, and he was not particularly nice to me, but I think it was like an ADHD thing, so I'm not going to hold it against him. But anyway, but he's knowledgeable. A lot of his he has stories from like a million years ago, which are interesting. absolutely. But increasingly, I find the stuff that he talks about now to be even more interesting. So he just did a video about DeepSeek, and like the Steven Sinofsky thing, I think you should watch it or whatever. His take on this is very good and technical and knowledgeable. I find myself watching more and more of his videos. He's a guy like I would kind of cherry pick. And now I find myself like he comes with a video and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm probably going to watch this. So if you haven't heard of him or you haven't watched it, wasn't sure, whatever, I recommend it. Just check it out. Dave's Garage on YouTube.
Yeah.
And then the Power Toys thing is, I already referenced this, I guess, earlier today, I think, but Mark Razinovich and Scott Hanselman have a podcast now, which is, it's short and, I like those guys a lot, so I listen to it. It's good. And in an episode a month or two ago, they were talking about Zoomit, which is a utility that Mark wrote 30 years ago. One of the many sysinternals utilities, right?
So good.
So, and they were joking around about how at some show Mark gave Scott access to the source code. He was like, I thought this was going to be this awesome thing, and it's like, complete garbage or whatever. But Zoomit is so it made me go back and look at this. I haven't looked at this in a long time. And Zoomit is an amazing utility, but they mentioned it allows you to zoom into the screen, right? So in other words, you're doing a presentation, you want to zoom into this part of the screen, whatever, and zoom back out really quickly. It's nice. It does a bunch of stuff, but that's the primary thing. But he mentioned, Mark did, that it was coming to Power Toys. So this week they released a new version of Power Toys, which has this utility built into it. So I used Power Toys fairly extensively. After I have to say, I kind of ignored it for maybe longer than was healthy in my case, because I use a bunch of these things all the time now. Let me think, when was this? I don't remember. I did an episode on hands-on Windows a while back, but then since then I picked up more of them. I actually like the double control key thing for the mouse. I use like every day, literally.
Yeah.
Power Run, I use the screen timeout one to keep the screen awake all the time. And Zoom, it's part of it now too. So, definitely check it out. Like if you haven't, Power Toys is pretty amazing.
Yeah,
it's a great tool.
Yep.
All right, Richard, you
sir.
are up. It is time for RunAs Radio.
Let's see how this internet holds together now that we're towards the end of this. So this last show of the month with Mark Marowski, I called it Querying for Breaches because it's actually about Kusto. And Kusto, or KQL, is this language for querying across the logs and telemetry and all of the data sources that you have inside your Azure tenant. And he's actually put together a book with a few associates called The Definitive Guide to KQL. And it includes all kinds of working examples. So things like, show me everybody that's logged in the order they've logged in and when the last time they logged in was. Go analyzing baseline behaviors, like what take this account and show me what resources they access on a weekly basis. It's really quite powerful stuff. And the point was, you can run these queries and get to a place where you can see a breach in action. You can see that an account has been compromised and is exfiltrating data and so forth, because it's all in the logs. It's just that you tend not to look for them. So having these smart query sets means you can run them on demand. You could schedule them and have the results emailed to you if they're interesting. So we were giving away a few of the KQL books. If you go to the RunAs site, you can get a discount code. And I got one for a buddy of mine that I gave to him for Christmas when we shot the show.
Nice.
So, nice. Mark's a great guy. He's actually moved over to the Ghost team now, which is the fighting the state actors.
Oh, how cool.
So he can't talk about his new work, but I'm like, please, someday. But now he was part of the intro team when they were doing all of this. And it just was one of those things where Kusto, like PowerShell, it's worth your time to learn. It'll make you a more effective administrator to have these tools in your pocket.
All right, I'm going to do an experiment on this next bit, the whiskey bit.
Yeah.
I am going to shut up and record with this plod note, record your entire piece and see what the notes are that it comes up with.
Well, I'm in London, so of course I went to World of Whiskey because this is one of the few places in the world that you can buy the Flora and Fauna edition whiskeys. And so this week I grabbed Blair Atoll. And I had just unwrapped it, so I haven't even tasted it yet. So Blair Atoll is actually a town, and the distillery is outside of Blair Atoll in a little area called Pitlochry. This is all north of Edinburgh, so this is in the Highlands. In fact, it's at the very southern edge of the Grampian Mountains, in a bit of a flatland moor area there, with a good water source called Alt de Burn, which means the burn of the otter, or the river of the otter. This is one of the old distilleries. It was originally founded by John Stewart and Robertson in 1798, although at the time they called it Overdue, which was the name of the waterway at the time, and didn't do well at all, shut down shortly thereafter. But in 1825, it was enlarged and reopened and called Blair Atoll, likely because that was the name of the duke that owned all the land in the area and the town. And so they did a little better in the early 1800s. It was acquired by Peter Mackenzie, who was one of the large whiskey barons at the time in 1886. And then, of course, it got into trouble during Prohibition, all those sorts of things. So Blair and Sons acquired them. That's Arthur Bell and Sons bought Blair Atoll. At the same time, they acquired Dufftown and a few others, all in financial distress. Arthur Bell and Sons makes a whiskey, which they still do to this day, called Bell's Blend. So they were making blended whiskey in the 1850s, just like all the other big blenders that we've been talking about recently. And so the Bell's Blend, which is still made today, is made with a variety of these whiskeys, include Blair Atoll as the primary whiskey goes in that blend to this day, along with Dufftown and Inchgower and Glenkinchie and Cowriela and a few others. So shortly after those were all rolled up in 1933. With the war coming on, everything got shut down, and then after the war, they sort of recovered. And then we never really have talked about Arthur Bell and Sons before. It's because they were acquired by Guinness in 85, and then of course Guinness merges in with the Distillers Company, become United Distillers in 1987. And it was Distillers Company that came up with that idea in 88 called the Masters of Malt, which was Glenkinchie, Dalwhinnie, Cragganmore, Talisker, Lagavulin, all whiskeys we've talked about before, and really was one of those moments that put whiskey on the map again, because people had moved away from it to highballs and things in the 70s. But Lagavulin being the big hit, it suddenly peat whiskey became cool. And so that happened in 88. And then in 91 was when United Distillers went past this Masters of Malt and created this Flora and Fauna series. So these were all whiskeys that didn't have brands. We talked about this last year when I got the Dahlia 16. And there was actually 26 of them. So these were all distilleries that tended to go into blends. Some go into Johnny Walker, some go into Bell's, and a couple of others. And that includes things like Blair Atoll and a bunch of the others I mentioned, Dahlia, Mordlock, Rosebank, and so forth. But United Distillers, in trying to just make more of their whiskey approachable, would do specialty bottlings of this, largely only for the local market. This bottle does not have an export license on it, and it's one of the reasons I only tend to get them in the UK, because they're just very hard to come by. And so Floras and Fauna, that was 91. That's a while ago. They've sort of come and gone. It's big with collectors. When they initially came out, they were like 20 pounds. When I first ran into them in early aughts, some of them were 40, 50 pounds. Today, the very popular ones, like the Mortlock 16, if you can find one, 200, 300 pounds. Really hard to come by. Now, the United Distillers doesn't exist anymore, because by 1997, they are acquired by Grand Metropolitan, and that all pulls together to become what we know as Diageo. So this is now all Diageo, for better or worse. And again, I have the longer I get to know Diageo, the less I dislike them. The distillery itself is a classic, partially automated distillery in the Highlands. So no peat. I did note that they use cream yeast, because that seems to amuse you too. They do a short fermentation, about 2 days, for 50 hours or so. Their wort is cloudy. They use a mixed washback approach. So they have 4 wooden washbacks and 2 steel washbacks, which is unusual in their fermentation and preparation of the wort, before they go into a pair of 13,000 liter wash stills and a pair of spirit stills. These stills are known to be pear-shaped. You can see the pictures that you had of them there. Just to say, they have no reflux bowls. Their lie arms are fairly straight. It makes for a very mild whiskey. Now, normally this whiskey is only used for blending, and so it typically is only aged in bourbon casks, because they're the least expensive. But this Flora and Fauna bottling of Blair Atoll, which is a 12-year-old, is entirely barreled in first fill sherry cask. So this has spent 12 years in a sherry cask. And you can see it. Look at the color on that for a 12-year-old. It's unbelievable. So I am a very happy man. I haven't even tasted it yet because, it's rare. Most of the time if you have sherry cask finishes, the last year or the blending point is the only time it's in sherry. So this smells of sherry, like strongly. It's only 40%. So there's not a lot of alcohol smell. Nice glasses at the Curio.
Yeah, no kidding.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Lordy. Yes, sir. Now, it's got a sharpness to it. Like, there's no peat in this, but there's definitely a smokiness. Like, that's interesting to me, and it warms really well. Like, well, hello, you just had a nice drink of whiskey. But, yeah, a very potent sherry flavor. And these, they just don't have a brand. Like, look at this bottle. It's a very standardized bottle. This is literally what we call the Flora and Fauna bottle. It looks like so many bottles that look like this, and all the labels are yellow. You have to read them. They're not distinctive on the shelf to understand what they are. Now, I picked this up today for 65 pounds, so about $80 US at World of Whiskey. Not particularly expensive. It is very hard to find in the US. It's not impossible, but it is difficult, but you'll probably pay twice that, $150. And that's a bit much for a 12-year-old. But if you're in the UK, go get one. Bring it home. Your friends will never had it because they're very hard to find outside of the UK. And they're fun. They're a nice, very drinkable whiskey from a brand you've never heard of because it's never marketed, except in these rare occasions in the Flora and Fauna bottlings.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Man, one of these days I'm going to have to take up drinking.
I wouldn't recommend it. Impairs your judgment.
But it looks like you're having so much fun.
Yeah, I am. Well, and it's a whole thing about telling a story. Can you tell that photograph was taken with the bottle laying on its side? Because there's a big bubble there.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
That's a giveaway. Wow.
Yeah, it is.
This one, no.
That's that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anyway, the fun part is I picked this up earlier today, and I've been working at the conference doing all these things. And all my friends have been staring at the bottle. It's like, what do we do? It's like, I'm not opening it till Windows Weekly. I'm get at it tomorrow.
I would have opened it, but they turned off my internet. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not coming home with this, right? This is going to be shared amongst my friends this week before I head off to Stockholm for next week. Very nice.
Very, very nice.
So I mean, every time we've done this in London, I have gone to a World of Whiskey and picked up a Flora and Fauna. It's just like, add this to your list of things to do when you're in London or anywhere in the UK. Find a good whiskey shop, go get a Flora and Fauna bottling. Take their recommendation. I don't think any of them are bad, but some of them are really special. And a 12-year sherry-aged whiskey is pretty rare.
Nice. Yeah, I like the idea that it was in the barrel for 12 years. That's great.
Yeah. And that also means that they very much intentionally made this.
Right.
They took new make and barreled it differently than what
they knew what they were.
Do.
Yeah, they were up to something.
They intended to make a Flora and Fauna from it.
Yeah, very interesting. I like the name too, Blair Atoll.
Blair Atoll. Yeah, it's
comes from the Gaelic, according to Matt, from Blair Athfoda, which translates to the English, the plain of the New Ireland.
Mm.
Well, we've all learned something today, I think.
There you go. Yeah.
Richard Campbell is at runasradio.com. That's where you'll find his fabulous podcasts, Run As Radio and .NET Rocks with Carl Franklin. And he joins us here to do Windows Weekly every Wednesday, as does Paul Thurrott from Thurrott.com. Go join the Thurrott Premium Club. That way you can read his rant about Google and CJ and the gang.
I miss CJ.
And your world CJ. Going through an existential threat.
As I wrote in that article, I assume CJ is a woman. I don't actually know. No. Could be the guitarist from Poison for all I know. It doesn't matter.
I think West Wing took over the term.
Yes, CJ became a woman's name in West Wing. That's right. CJ was the press secretary.
Absolutely.
I worked with a DJ named CJ Bronson.
A DJ named CJ, pretty good.
A DJ named CJ, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want Paul's books, you're going to have to go to leanpub.com. But boy, it's worth it. Windows everywhere, and the field guide to Windows 11, both there. Set your own price. If you like this show, you can come listen to us do it live if you want. We have a live broadcast of the production of this program beginning at 11 a.m. Pacific every Wednesday. That's 2 p.m. Eastern, 1900 UTC. The live streams are everywhere. Should be pretty easy to find us. If you're a club member, of course, you can listen in the Discord. But we're also on YouTube, Twitch, X.com, Facebook, LinkedIn, Kick, and did I mention TikTok? I didn't. And there's one more I'm missing. There's 8 of them. Anyway.
So, Leo, I was thinking, if you want to get something for your wife for her birthday.
It's a little late for that. Today's the day.
An Eagles jersey would be the right thing to do.
Not an Eagles fan. Fly, Eagles, fly. We're talking about sport ball.
Just let's throw it out there. It's an idea.
Are you an Eagles fan? I guess you would be. Is McCungy closer to Philly than Pittsburgh?
Much, yeah. So we were in a bar and I was talking blah blah, and someone came in and said, "Hey, what happened to the Eagles game? Was on TV?" And I was like, "Oh, we did the blah blah blah." And my wife leaned in and she goes, "Did you just say we?"
Yeah, that's.
And I was like, "I am talking to the locals. Shut up."
We're the 49ers. We are, and you are the Phillies. And the Eagles.
We're something.
Yes, for sure. You are. And Richard, you're the Canucks.
That's it. Yeah, and the Lions.
And the Lions. Yeah. You got to really identify with your team if you're going to watch. Our son is so disgusted. Michael is a big Green Bay Packers fan. He's so disgusted by the playoffs. Yeah. He says, "I'm giving up football. The refs are in the bag for the KC. I'm going to take up baseball."
Oh, good. You'll love that sport. It's not gonna, nothing will disappoint you there. I hope you like the slog of
manipulating baseball at all.
It's like a 9-month, 162 games. It's going to be great. It's just
he says he wants to be a Milwaukee Brewers fan. I don't understand that at all.
Fascinating. Okay.
At least be a Cubbies fan. I mean, if you really want pain and suffering.
Yeah.
So watch the show live, but you don't have to because we do make it available on demand. It's easy enough. Go to the website, twit.tv/WW. You could download audio or video files there. You can also go to the YouTube channel. There's a link on the webpage and watch there or share clips. That's what we like you to do. And, of course, best way to get the show, subscribe in your favorite podcast player. That way you'll get it automatically the minute it's available. The minute Kevin King puts the final polish on it, sprinkles it with Kevin King dust, and that's appealing, isn't it? And then wraps it up with a bow and puts it out on the internet. We'll be back next week with your analysis of the Microsoft earnings, which are just coming out now, and of course all the usual fun and merriment and Thurrants. Where are you off to next, Richard?
I am off to Stockholm on the weekend, so I will be streaming from Stockholm. And I literally delayed my return so I could do that before I fly back on there.
Nice,
thank you. Well, a little extra time in Stockholm ain't the worst.
No, January or February.
Well, January. Yeah, you're right. Actually,
enjoy the 15 seconds of sunlight or whatever it is now.
Yeah, I got the heavy coat, and I'll probably pick up a bottle of Macmillan while I'm there.
All right. We could do Aquavita if you wish.
I don't think so.
Yikes.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. A special thanks to our Club Twit members. We really appreciate you. And we will see you all next week on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.